Chapter 1304. Every time Wu Jueqing mentioned his brothers, he would always cover his face with a cloud of mist. He didn't want anyone to see his expression at this moment. He missed them, he was persistent, but he was also proud. The people of the world do not understand my pain, my bitterness, my loneliness, my pride, and my satisfaction. Looking at Wu Jueqing's pained expression, Chu Yang, who was originally conflicted, couldn't help but sigh deeply. Although Wei Wuyan had died, his next life would be created by himself. Now, it wasn't long before Hong Wuliang's death. Generally speaking, if Wei Wuyan's wife really died unjustly, as long as her soul wasn't extinguished, it was very likely that she would still exist. Of course, as for Wei Wuyan's son, he should have long disappeared in the cycle of reincarnation. What kind of hatred could a child who wasn't even a year old have? But Wei Wuyan's wife was different. Therefore, as long as one was willing to put in the effort to search for Wei Wuyan's death, or rather, if there was something in the dark, then, it wasn't impossible for Wei Wuyan to reunite with his wife. Chu Yang was sorrowful, but he was more or less comforted. But Wu Jueqing's case was difficult. Wei Wuyan's death caused Wu Jueqing to be worried. It made him think of his brothers. Those brothers were real brothers. Wu Jueqing's feelings for his brothers, which hadn't been erased even after tens of thousands of years, could be seen. Would they have a next life? Chu Yang could really answer this question, but he didn't know how to answer it. This was because it involved a person who had met with a tragic end. He was a peerless hero who could make people cry at the same time. If this person was also brought out and the truth was made known to the world, with Wu Jueqing's character, even committing suicide out of shame would be considered a light punishment. Chu Yang had no choice but to sigh, and say nothing. Wu Jueqing looked at Wn Renjie and the other two who were using the most primitive method to dig a grave. There was actually a strong sense of envy in his eyes. I also miss my brothers. My brothers are dead, and I don't even have the right to dig a grave for them, Wu Jueqing sighed sadly. Chu Yang, you seem to be very skilled in doing this, and you seem to believe in the afterlife. He smiled bitterly and said, Chu Yang, you also know my origin, and you also know what happened to me. Let me ask you something. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. He asked, what? Does that world really exist? Asked Wu Jueqing. It should exist. Chu Yang thought for a while. He replied cautiously, in this world, there are many mysterious things that cannot be explained, but we know that there are some mysterious things. It really existed. If we were ordinary people, we wouldn't have received education from that world since we were young. But at our level, we wouldn't have been able to learn about it. Once you're able to cultivate your soul, you'll know, perhaps, there really is such a world. For example, we all know now that there is a celestial palace above us. That is where the true powerhouses are. Or perhaps, it is a place of legends, a place with so-called immortals. Since there are immortals, there are naturally ghosts, Chu Yang said softly. Since there really is such a world, there really is karma and reincarnation. Then, Wu Jueqing was silent for a while. His face seemed to be covered by a layer of fog in this instant. He asked softly, do you think, those 8 brothers of mine, have an afterlife? Could they also exist in that world below? If one day I die, will I be able to find them? Wu Jueqing murmured. Chu Yang was speechless. Would he be able to find them in that world? Of course he wouldn't. Because tribulation was now, in the extraterrestrial battlefield. But Chu Yang couldn't answer. If he answered, Wu Jueqing would ask, how did you know? Where can I go, to find my brothers? Asked Wu Jueqing. Can that heavenly orchid be useful to me? Chu Yang, where are they? Wu Jueqing's voice became softer and softer. Do they still remember me? Chu Yang only felt his own heart twisting. He took a deep breath and said, according to the ancient legends, good people are all heavenly, good people are all stars in the heavens. So, if they are in a certain place in the celestial palace, could it be the resting place of heroic spirits? Wu Jueqing fell silent. As if he was considering Chu Yang's words, as if he was deep in thought. Chewing. Chu Yang somewhat hated his own cheap mouth for speaking too much. But Seeing Wu Jueqing so dejected for his brothers, thinking that he also had brothers, he couldn't bear it. Although he couldn't tell him the whole truth now, it was also good to comfort him. Chu Yang comforted himself. Wu Jueqing chuckled and said in a low and deep voice, "Back then, when we were happy, we sang and roared together. When the wind blew, we rode together in the martial world. When faced with strong enemies, we went through fire and water together. When faced with danger, we went through a sea of fire and a mountain of knives together. When I was in trouble, I would go right away. When I was in trouble, I wouldn't return even if I died." That year, Jueqing was trapped in the Azure Dragon Gorge due to his evil scheme. In the wind and snow, the brothers' roars and blood were all colorful. Because of me alone, the 10 of us were almost completely wiped out. After the treatment, Big Brother took out more than 30 hidden weapons. That day, the 10 of us held each other's hands and staggered out of the Azure Dragon Gorge. Our bodies were weak and we could barely stand, but when we looked at the world, we instantly felt that with my brothers beside us, we were invincible. Now, there's only me. Now, there's only me. Brothers, do you know that I miss all of you? Now, I'm all alone, wasting away the world. I'm injured, beaten, wronged, and there's no one to talk to, no one to stand up for me. Wu Jueqing's voice became softer and softer, as if a sentence had just appeared from his lips and then disappeared in the wind without a trace. He was a top-notch expert of his time. Naturally, he didn't need others to stand up for him. However, during the battle of slaying of the Tao, he was plotted against by the Dharma Supreme and was severely injured. After he was injured, he recalled countless times how his brothers had stood up for him back then. Countless times, he thought, if my brothers were still around. If my brothers were still around, what would happen? They would probably have already charged forward. Regardless of whether he was the Dharma Supreme or not, he would have long been beaten to the ground by now. If my brothers were still around, who would dare to bully me? Who would dare to lie to me? That feeling of having brothers stand up for him was simply too heartwarming. Too heartwarming. Every time he thought of this, Wu Jueqing, who was already tens of thousands of years old, felt especially lonely and cold, especially like a child who had no one to rely on in this vast world. The bitterness in his heart made him want to cry out loud. But his brothers were no longer around. Even if he wanted to cry, there was no place for him to cry. Chu Yang looked at the void in front of him rather absent-mindedly. He murmured, "Together we sang and roared, together we rode in the martial world, together we went through fire and water, together we climbed mountains and seas of fire. When my brother is in trouble, I will rush to help. When my brother is in trouble, I will not return even if I die. With my brothers by my side, I am invincible." When these words came out of Wu Jueqing's mouth, they were filled with melancholy and sadness. But when they came out of Chu Yang's mouth, they were filled with heroic satisfaction. Wu Jueqing was talking about his brothers, but Chu Yang was talking about his own brothers. Both of them said the same thing, but the feeling they gave was that one was in heaven and the other was on earth. One was filled with sorrow and desolation in the autumn wind, while the other was filled with warmth in the scorching summer. Wu Jueqing sighed and turned to look at him. Although he couldn't see the look in his eyes or his expression, Chu Yang still felt that this look was filled with envy. "Back then, we were all like you now." Wu Jueqing seemed to want to prove something indignantly. This sentence of his was especially forceful and heavy, as though he was in a fit of pique. "Even more satisfied than you," Chu Yang said solemnly. "I believe you. When one had such feelings, anyone would feel that they were happier and more satisfied than others. Chu Yang, let's have a casual chat." Wu Jueqing was silent for a while before he said, "Okay." Chu Yang smiled bitterly in his heart. Wu Jueqing had just lamented and reminisced about the past. Why? At this level, every action and action of an expert was already almost in line with the path of the Great Tao. How could there be any casual chat? The moment Wu Jueqing said this, Chu Yang knew that he definitely had something to say. And, it was probably something that he had been very worried about. It was about to happen. But even though he had already said casual chat, Wu Jueqing didn't say anything. After a long while, Wu Jueqing said, go to the cliff and take a look. Don't let anyone come near. I have something to discuss with your big brother. Chu Lo responded as though she had just woken up from a dream. She stood up and walked out. Chu Lo had been at the side the whole time, but she was distracted. Sometimes, she would look at Wei Wuyan's corpse and choke with sobs. She didn't hear a single word of the conversation between Wu Jueqing and Chu Yang at all. But Wu Jueqing still sent her out. Seeing that Chu Lo had walked far away and seeing that Wn Renjie and the other two were still busy, Wu Jueqing said, Chu Yang, do you know what I want to say? Chu Yang smiled bitterly. I'm all ears. Chu Yang, how old are you now? Wu Jueqing was silent for a long time before he asked. When he asked this question, the fog on his face seemed to thicken. Just turned 20. Chu Yang was stunned for a moment. Just turned 20. Ho. Wu Jueqing laughed softly and said, more than 3 years ago, you overturned the lower 3 heavens alone before you turned 18. You were hailed as the king of Hell Chu. You're really amazing. Chu Yang was shocked. 2 years ago, you weren't even 10. Now, you're not even 20, but your cultivation has already reached 2nd grade supreme martial artist, 2nd grade sword supremacy, Wu Jueqing said, and it hasn't even been 2 years since you came to the upper 3 heavens. Wu Jueqing's voice was very ethereal. He said, you're not from a big clan, and you don't have that kind of super heavenly treasure aura on you, but you've achieved such achievements. Chapter 1305. It seemed that during this period of time, Wu Jueqing had learned a lot about him in the Chu clan. The Chu clan had Chu Feiyan, Mo Qingwu, his parents, and now, Dong Wushang, Rui Butong and Mo Lei. If Wu Jueqing wanted to understand something, it was really possible for him to connect all his actions in the upper and lower 3 heaven. To piece together a complete Chu Yang, the reason why Chu Xiongqing recovered was because you gave him the mysterious Ice Jade Core and the mysterious Yang Jade Core. Chu Feiling's cultivation improved greatly because you gave him a medicine. Wu Jueqing's voice became slower and slower, the fog on his face thicker and thicker. Chu Yang could no longer see his eyes or his face clearly. Now, he couldn't even see his hair. The Moon Breeze couple's injuries healed very quickly. Mo Qingwu has a saber that you gave her, and it is indeed a peerless divine weapon. And you suddenly transformed into a divine physician. Le-Er's illness was cured by you single-handedly, and you even obtained the heaven-nourishing jade. During the battle of slaying of the Dao, the Moon Breeze couple was already unable to continue fighting. But after Bu Liuqing protected them for a while, they suddenly became lively again. I heard that you have 7 to 8 good brothers in the upper 3 heavens who have gone through thick and thin with you. Chu Yang smiled bitterly as he listened to Wu Jueqing's analysis. He waited quietly for Wu Jueqing to reveal the results. But when Wu Jueqing reached this point, he suddenly stopped talking. He just fell into deep thought for a long time. This atmosphere was so oppressive that Chu Yang could hardly breathe. Just now, I mentioned my brothers. Wu Jueqing said, Chu Yang, tell me about your brothers. Chu Yang said helplessly, even if I don't tell you, you already know everything. With your experience, if you want Qingwu to tell you this story in detail, there will definitely be no problem. Wu Jueqing chuckled and said, not only Qingwu, there are also Wushang and Butong. They are also in the Chu clan. These two have been practicing martial arts with me when they go back. Chu Yang made a sound of agreement. Wushang is powerful and domineering. His aura is even stronger than my 4th brother's. I heard. You also have a brother called Jiyu Duxing. His name contains the word Duxing and he is the 2nd brother. He is sharp and cold, invincible. Wu Jueqing said, he is comparable to my 2nd brother. It's not that far off. I heard that Mo Qingwu's brother, Mo Tianji, has a name. This was because of the 2 words, Heaven's Secret. Strategizing in a tent and determining victory from 1,000 miles away. This reminds me of my 5th brother, Shimen Wanli. Wu Jueqing paused for a moment before he continued, Chu Yang, if there comes a day where you have to sacrifice your brothers for some matter, what will you do? Chu Yang remained silent for a long time. Do you believe what I'm saying now? Wu Jueqing said, I believe you. As long as you say it, I'll believe you. Chu Yang struggled in his heart. He almost blurted out, I won't hurt my brothers. But before he could say anything, he swallowed his words. He said indifferently, this world can't force me to that extent yet. Wu Jueqing seemed to be smiling. However, his face was covered by a layer of fog, and Chu Yang couldn't see his expression. Then, Wu Jueqing said, Chu Yang, let me tell you a story. A very complete story. Chu Yang sighed, I'm all ears. And so, Wu Jueqing began to tell the story in a very slow and heavy tone. The story of the Jiyu clan started with a young man leaving the clan and what he did along the way. The main character of the story was ultimately a young man. He improved, grew up, made brothers and friends, and then ventured into the world with his brothers. How Big Brother treated him, how he treated his brothers, and some of the experiences between them, Wu Jueqing was telling the story. Chu Yang was listening. Chu Yang knew what Wu Jueqing was telling the story about, and Wu Jueqing also knew that Chu Yang knew what he was telling the story about. The two of them had a tacit understanding. The story had already passed for a long time, but right from the start, Wu Jueqing didn't stop. He spoke very fluently. It was as if all of this had already been imprinted in his heart, and wouldn't fade even after thousands and thousands of years. When the story reached the final stage, the brothers united the continent. Then, Wu Jueqing stopped abruptly at this point. He sighed heartbreakingly and said, Chu Yang, how perfect would it be if the story ended here? Chu Yang felt the same way. Yes, if the story had ended at this moment when Wu Jueqing stopped, this story would practically be perfect to the extreme. Talented and beautiful, brave and courageous, in life and death, in fortune and misfortune together, working hard together and fighting together, they finally reached their goal. They succeeded. Chu Yang, do you think that this big brother in the story had no choice but to kill all of his brothers because of some matters? Asked Wu Jueqing. Chu Yang was silent. Wu Jueqing was also silent. After a long while, Wu Jueqing finally got to his feet. I hope that one day, you can give me an answer. He stood at the top of the mountain, standing there bleakly. This is my only hope, and also my only chance. Chu Yang was silent. Wu Jueqing said dispassionately, when that day comes, if you don't give me an answer, I will kill you. Wu Jueqing said coldly, Lord Z has already left. In this world, there won't be a second Lord Z protecting you. If I want to kill you, even if you are a low-grade supreme martial artist, even if Ning Tianya and Moon Breeze couple protect you together, you won't be able to escape death. Chu Yang said dispassionately, I also want to know the answer, but it's useless to threaten me. Even if you threaten me, I won't tell you even if I know. Wu Jueqing snorted. Chu Yang said, Elder Wu, how about I make a deal with you? What kind of deal? Asked Wu Jueqing, raising his brows. The deal is, during this period of time, don't disrupt my plans and don't interfere with my actions. More than that, I don't want to feel any pressure from you. When the time is right, perhaps, you still have, Chu Yang gritted his teeth. The chance to see those 8 brothers of yours. Wu Jueqing's whole body shook violently. The fog covering his face suddenly flew away. He grabbed Chu Yang's shoulder and asked, What? Chu Yang's shoulder made cracking sounds from his grip, but his expression didn't change. You didn't hear wrongly. Wu Jueqing slowly let go. He stared at Chu Yang in a daze. He couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Suddenly, he couldn't help but roar into the sky. With a roar, heaven and earth move. I'll wait, said Wu Jueqing solemnly. Tears suddenly flowed out of his eyes without warning. This made him feel very embarrassed. He wanted to say something, but he felt a lump in his throat and couldn't speak. He hurriedly shut his mouth. After a long time, he said hoarsely, no matter how long. I'll wait. Chu Yang only felt a wave of bitterness in his heart. He said, but, your strength needs to improve. Wu Jueqing raised his face. The tears on his face suddenly evaporated into mist. All of a sudden, he seemed to be in high spirits again. It was as if that arrogant and evil noble from tens of thousands of years ago had appeared in front of everyone once again. My strength needs to improve, said Wu Jueqing slowly. That means, my cultivation is already holding them back. That means, They're not in this dimension. That means, you need to work harder. Chu Yang interrupted him with a smile. Wu Jueqing was stunned. Then, he nodded and smiled. Yes. I should work harder. His eyes were filled with longing. This was the first time in tens of thousands of years for such an expression to appear in Wu Jueqing's eyes. He didn't even ask, nor did he have any doubts. Because he didn't dare. He didn't dare to let this glimmer of hope that suddenly appeared in him be destroyed under his questioning. He'd rather believe it foolishly. Actually, I don't know either, whether this is good or bad for you, said Chu Yang silently in his heart. Elder Wu, I have a question. The Heavens continent, the place with the deepest blessings. Where is it? Asked Chu Yang. The place with the deepest blessings? Wu Jueqing frowned. For tens of thousands of years, the feng shui changes once every 10,000 years. How can it be so accurate? Chu Yang's eyes lit up. That means, the place where the big clans are, of course, is the place with the deepest blessings, said Wu Jueqing proudly. Do the big clans choose their locations for nothing? These words made Chu Yang's ears resound with a thunderclap. The place where the big clans were. Put it this way. The Yi clan, which was ranked number 1 among the big clans, was the place with the deepest blessings. The night was cold and chilly, so that's how it was. So it was this night. Where the purple aura comes from the east, the bright moon rises above the mountains. When heaven and earth shine together, the night is cold and chilly. In the Yi clan, when heaven and earth shine together, there is a mysterious place. One needs fate. In an instant, Chu Yang only felt that the fog in front of him suddenly cleared up. Understood. The joy in his heart at this moment was really indescribable. He really wanted to look up to the sky and roar. When he turned to look, he was stunned for a moment. The sky was already dark. Wei Wuyan was already laid to rest. At this moment, Wn Renjie and the other 2 were adding soil to the grave. Chu Yang's mood instantly became heavy again. He grabbed a big stone and slammed it down hard. It became a stone tablet and erected in front of Wei Wuyan. The grave of his close friend Wei Wuyan. It was a very ordinary tombstone. Chu Yang thought for a while. His fingers moved quickly and carved another line of words on it. The ruler of the world, the heroes of the world, all have no face in front of you. Seeing this line of words, Wn Renjie and the other 2 revealed a proud look. Yes, in this world, who could be like Wei Wuyan? In order to repay his teacher's kindness, he lived like a day for 1,000 years. In order to let his wife and children down, he would not give up until his death. Even though it was because of a nasty scam, Wei Wuyan's character was obvious to all. Chu Yang, when are you going to kill the Chen clan? The 3 of us must go. Wn Renjie said loudly. Cheng Jueying and Bao Buhuan were also resolute. Okay, Chu Yang agreed. Suddenly, he saw something in Wn Renjie's hand. What's this? Wn Renjie raised his hand. In his hand was a broken hand. It's Wei Wuyan's hand. I've cut it off. Wn Renjie gritted his teeth. At that time, I'll use Brother Wei's hand to smash the heads of the Chen clan members one by one and let him take revenge personally. After that, I'll bury it here. Chu Yang was silent for a while. Give it to me. I'll do it. It's Christmas today. Merry Christmas to everyone. Gee, I'm going out to eat with my family today. In order to wait for me, the whole family is still hungry at 8:30 p.m. Cough, cough. I originally wanted to update only 1 chapter, but I suddenly remembered that today was the birthday of the leader of the sacrificial mother. So, this 2nd chapter is considered an extra chapter. Congratulations to the leader of the sacrificial mother. Happy birthday to her. Forever young and beautiful. Chapter 1306. Taking advantage of the night, Chu Yang sped forward. The direction was the Yi clan's territory. The place where purple crystals were densely packed was a place of great fortune, the moment when yin and yang intersected, the moment when heaven and earth shone together. Chu Yang was going for the 2nd segment of the Tribulation Sword. He couldn't wait to get the 2nd segment of the Tribulation Sword and let his brothers come up. The leather boots on his feet had long been thrown away somewhere. He just ran barefoot on the ground. As he ran, the starlight shone in the sky and the boundless earth under his feet. Chu Yang suddenly felt as if he had entered a wonderful realm. He suddenly flew up. It was as if he himself was in mid-air, wandering and soaring under the starlight. On the ground in front of him, he could clearly see another him running wildly. The night wind that blew against him messed up the hair of this other him and caused his clothes to flutter behind him. As he ran, the internal energy in his body slowly circulated. He felt waves of pure energy of the earth surging up from the soles of his feet, and waves of pure spiritual energy of the universe pouring down from the top of his head, one up and one down, forming a perfect cycle. It went one round in his body and returned to his dantian. The second strand of primordial real silk in his dantian also seemed to be trembling, and slowly growing stronger. The cultivation in his body was also constantly being purified as the energy of the earth kept surging into him. He felt as if all the pores on his body had opened up. Wisps of impure internal energy gradually spread out from his pores, and the empty space was replaced by pure spiritual energy of the universe. The impurities in his body were excreted from his pores and dissipated in the wind. Only the grease that adhered to the surface of his body was instantly dried by the wind. Watching himself running, watching his own body changing, this was a wonderful phenomenon. Zhong Tai thought to himself, watching his own body changing. Chu Yang ran tirelessly for an entire night just like that. When the east was slightly brighter, that consciousness finally entered his body under the guidance of a wave of fatigue. Only then did Chu Yang stop in a forest and leap onto the treetops. He rested for a while. 1/10 of the cultivation in his body had already become pure spiritual energy of the universe. This 1/10 occupied the center of his dantian, surrounding the tribulation sword. The other spiritual energy of the universe was outside, filling his entire body. When all the spiritual energy of heaven and earth has been converted into pure energy, I should be able to reach 4th or 5th grade supreme martial artist, right? Chu Yang checked his body and pondered. After leveling up to the supreme being level, every step he took forward. Even Chu Yang felt that it was difficult. If one were to talk about the difference between middle grade saint and supreme grade saint. If he only needed one step, then from 1st grade supreme martial artist to 2nd grade supreme martial artist, he needed at least 10 steps. And these 10 steps. Every step he took was greater than the previous one. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be to ascend from the 2nd rank to the 3rd rank. No matter how difficult it is, I'm already on my way, Chu Yang thought. He fell into meditation. He couldn't see his own appearance now, but if he did, he would definitely be shocked. His hair was a mess, sticking to his scalp. His face and neck were covered in black grease, making it impossible to see his face clearly. His black robe was also in tatters. Shouts could be heard from outside the forest. Sword light flashed. Chu Yang woke up abruptly and looked outside. He saw a person running toward him as fast as lightning. Behind this person, a shining sword light chased after him like a meteor. It was obviously much faster than the person in front. Chu Yang's heart shook when he saw this sword light. Sword supreme being. And a high-level one. At least 3rd grade. Why would a sword supreme being suddenly appear here? Who was he? That sharp sword aura made Chu Yang almost think that Gu Duxing had come. The person in front roared, and balls of starlight suddenly burst out from his body. Then his body suddenly accelerated and rushed into the dense forest like a whirlwind. The starlight dissipated. With a series of crackling sounds, countless branches and trunks broke. That person had already reached a place not far from the big tree where Chu Yang was hiding. That burst of energy was still rushing forward, but his body was like a clay ox entering the sea, disappearing without a trace. Even with Chu Yang's eyesight, he could only see that he leaned against a tree trunk beside him and disappeared. What kind of martial arts was this? Could this be the unique martial arts of the 3 Stars Divine Clan? Although it was just a glimpse, Chu Yang had already recognized that this person was the elder of the 3 Stars Divine Clan who had given him an incomplete version of the heavy pill in the Zhuge clan's dungeon. He didn't expect that he had already escaped. It must be the power of that heavy pill of his. However, The Zhuge clan was really good at hiding. This kind of news actually didn't leak out. Just as he was thinking, that ball of sword light also followed closely behind and penetrated into the dense forest. A dragon-like ray of light chased along the path ahead. Along the way, there were thunderous sounds and all the big trees were crushed. In just a short moment, the sword light suddenly turned around and was outside the forest again. Then, it penetrated into the forest again and suddenly stopped. It stopped not far from the big tree where Chu Yang was hiding, where the divine clan elder had disappeared. The sword light dissipated, revealing the tall figure of a man in black. Chu Yang suddenly felt a wave of admiration in his heart. When the divine clan elder came in, he immediately set up a deceptive formation without any hesitation and hid himself. But when this person chased in, he actually detected the other party's scheme in an instant and immediately retreated. When he came in again, he obviously used more or less the same power as the divine clan elder. When he reached the place where the divine clan elder had disappeared, he automatically stopped. In other words, he determined that the missing divine clan elder was within this area. This kind of judgment and insight was extremely shocking. This person was tall and slender, dressed in black. His face was handsome, but naturally carried a sense of coldness and sharpness. Just by standing there casually, he was already like an unsheathed sharp sword, awe-inspiring. In his hand, there was a long sword that shone with a cold light. At this moment, the cold light was faintly discernible. On the tip of the sword, there was still blood dripping slowly. He just stood there, his eyes quickly turning and looking at the tree trunk that the divine clan elder was leaning against. Chu Yang's scalp went numb. The degree of meticulousness and agility of this person's thoughts had reached an unbelievable level. The next moment, swoosh, 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 with a few sounds, 5 people rushed in like a gust of wind. Yi Zui. You. The black-robed man's gaze was fierce. He bent down and spun. Sword light suddenly exploded in mid-air like a thunderbolt. Even Chu Yang felt a burst of strong light before his eyes. At this moment, he almost couldn't see anything. A few screams sounded. The 5 people who came in later had already been divided into minced meat. They floated up and fell, their flesh and blood smashing into the bushes in the forest. At a glance, Chu Yang only had time to see a starlight mark on the forehead of one of them. The next moment, this person was smashed into pieces. This black-robed man attacked so quickly and ruthlessly that Chu Yang had never seen anything like it before. The murderous intent of this sword. It made Chu Yang's heart turn cold. His palms also couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Dantian. The tribulation sword suddenly became restless. This sword could actually trigger a reaction from the tribulation sword. Chu Yang was shocked and hurriedly comforted it. This sword has a strange smell. In the consciousness space, the sword spirit had already been awake for some time. It was just that he was still a little weak. At this moment, he suddenly spoke. Strange smell? Chu Yang frowned and asked. In that instant just now, that sword that seemed to want to kill all living things also made him feel strange. It was just that. It was an indescribable feeling. It seemed sinister and yet not sinister. It seemed terrifying and yet not terrifying. But it just made one feel uneasy. The sword spirit's voice was a little heavy. Maybe I saw wrongly. I hope I saw wrongly. In this sword, I actually felt the smell of demons. The smell of demons. Chu Yang frowned. Extraterrestrial demons? The sword spirit didn't speak again. Thinking of that shout just now, Chu Yang thought, Yi Zui? So this person is the first successor of the Yi clan, the #1 ruling clan in the martial world. Yi Zui, the Yi clan's Grand Duke who is as elusive as a dragon. There were many legends about Yi Zui in the martial world. It was said that this Grand Duke of the Yi clan was originally called Yi Shitian. But later on, for some reason, after getting drunk, he suddenly changed his name to Yi Zui, and anyone who dared to call him by his original name Yi Shitian would be sentenced to death for the crime of disrespect. At this moment, Yi Zui slowly retracted his murderous aura. He said indifferently, Third Elder, you can't escape. You'd better come out. I, Yi Zui, Guarantee that nothing will happen to you. There was no sound in the surroundings. Yi Zui was neither anxious nor impatient. He said indifferently, I, Yi Zui, have been in the martial world for 35 years. No one has ever survived my pursuit. And I have never lost sight of any enemy. You can't hide from me, nor can you escape. Instead of running for your life, why don't you come back with me obediently? That way, you can still receive some courtesy. Do you really want to live a life worse than death? Chu Yang's heart twitched. So this bastard had been in the martial world for 35 years. In that case, he was at least 50 years old this year. But his face still looked like that of a youth, being called a Grand Duke at 50 years old. Chu Yang suddenly felt a cramp in his crotch. If it was an ordinary person, he would have already been a grandfather, right? Here, he was still a Grand Duke. You're not coming out, are you? Yi Zui's voice slowly carried some murderous aura. He took 2 steps forward slowly and raised his head slowly. Do you think that I won't be able to find you after you hide in the tree this time? The next moment, Yi Zui's 2 piercing gazes met with Chu Yang's 2 astonished and bewildered gazes on the tree. Chu Yang felt like fainting. Why am I so unlucky? I just found a tree to rest in and someone actually mistook me for the main character. The 2 of them, one on the tree and one under the tree, looked at each other. Yi Zui smiled. Third Elder, your disguise this time is really not bad. Chu Yang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He cursed in his heart. You're the Third Elder. Your whole family is the Third Elder. I'm so fucking unlucky. I'm trying to save some drafts. Starting from the 20th, the monthly votes will be doubled. It has already been decided. Today is the 20th, 27th and 28th will also be updated twice. Then, no matter how much I save, the double will be released on the first day. The 3 days at the end of the month will completely determine the results of this year. When the time comes, I hope everyone will support me. We've been proud of the world for a year, but we have to make the final decision in the last 3 days. Either we make a complete turnaround, or we just walk through it in such a repressed manner. But I firmly believe that victory belongs to us. The last 3 days will definitely be crazy. Let's be on guard. Brothers, sisters. Chapter 1307. Yi Zui, Grand Duke of the Yi clan. Original name, Yi Kanmeng. After that, the Yi clan changed the name of Remnant Dream to Sure in the Yi clan, Yi Shitian. However, after he came of age and achieved success in swordsmanship, he changed his name to Yi Zui. This person could be said to be the #1 genius of the younger generation in the heavenly realm, the Sword King. Yi Zui was obsessed with swords since he was young. He started to come into contact with swords at the age of 1. At the age of 3, he could start learning swords. At the age of 15, he became a sword king. Back then, with the help of the clan's abundant resources, he soared all the way to the upper grade. However, he faced a bottleneck for a long time at this level. He only became a sword sovereign at the age of 25. Even though he was delayed by 10 years, he was still the only sword sovereign among his peers in the heavenly realm. Ever since he became a sword sovereign, Yi Zui seemed to have opened a door to the sword Dao. Within 3 years, he became a sword sovereign. Within another 3 years, he became a sword saint. Within another 8 years, he became a sword supremacy. Now, some people said that Yi Zui was already a 3rd-grade sword supremacy. Some said that he was a 4th-grade sword supremacy. Some even said that Yi Zui's sword cultivation was not inferior to the legendary supreme martial artist Bu Liuqing. Of course, Chu Yang scoffed at the last statement. However, this also proved how scary Yi Zui was. In the decades that Yi Zui had been growing up, whether it was power or women, all the temptations in the world were like fleeting clouds in front of him. Only the sword. He heard a saying before, only by being obsessed with and intoxicated by the sword can one become a sword master. He originally wanted to change his name to Yi Zui Sword. However, this name was really not nice, so he could only use the first 2 words. Now, this sword maniac was facing Chu Yang. Chu Yang was helpless. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I say, This expert, you've got the wrong person, right? Yi Zui stared at him for a while before he smiled coldly. I've often heard rumors that the people of the divine clan, especially those who have reached the upper echelons, are always changing. I didn't think much of it. Now that I've met you, I know that it's true. Third Elder, you can even change your aura. Chu Yang bared his teeth. You've really got the wrong person. Yi Zui's countenance gradually turned cold. Why? You're still not coming down? Could it be that you'll only be willing to come down after I invite you? Chu Yang heaved a huge sigh and jumped down from the tree. I say, Duke Yi. Where did you see me? Resembling the third elder? Yi Zui's sharp eyes narrowed slightly. Hee hee. Even if you're not third elder, how do you know that my name is Yi Zui? Chu Yang was speechless. He said, those people you killed just now were shouting your name. Do you think I'm deaf? Yi Zui smiled coldly and slowly raised his sword. He pointed the tip of his sword at Chu Yang. I'll ask you one more time. Third Elder, are you coming with me? Chu Yang said angrily, why are you so stubborn? I really didn't. Before he finished speaking, the piercingly cold sword chi was already surging over. Chu Yang let out a wild cry and turned around to flee. Damn it, this guy is a third-grade sword supremacy and probably a fourth-grade sword supremacy. And he's a direct descendant of a big clan. If I don't fucking use the tribulation sword technique, I'll be asking for trouble. Once I use the tribulation sword technique, he recognizes me. In such a situation, I can only run. A hint of admiration flashed across Yi Zui's eyes, and he immediately chased after him. Chu Yang was definitely not that third elder. Yi Zui was of course very clear about this point. But if he didn't recognize him as the third elder, how could he force him to fight with him? To Yi Zui, the current Chu Yang was much more important than that third elder. Otherwise, how could he have discovered the tree trunk that the third elder was hiding in? He actually pretended to ignore him and turned around to find trouble with Chu Yang? The third elder was very important. It was said that he was involved with a huge treasure. The purpose of Yi Zui's trip was, of course, to capture him. But Yi Zui was actually not interested in the so-called treasure at all. What he was really interested in was only the sword, swordsman, sword supremacy. This was where his interest lay. For so many years, he hadn't met a sword supremacy who was similar to him. Yi Zui was unbearably lonely. Of course. Although there were people who compared him to Biyu Liuqing, Yi Zui himself knew his own limits. With his cultivation, not to mention sparring with Biyu Liuqing, he probably wouldn't even be able to withstand a glance from Biyu Liuqing. Even if he asked Biyu Liuqing to suppress his cultivation level and fight with him, he would definitely die. Now that he had tracked the third elder all the way here, he actually inadvertently discovered the aura of a stranger, and to his surprise, discovered that this stranger was actually a sword supremacy, second grade. This made Yi Zui feel as if a huge pie had fallen from the sky. Under such temptation, why would Yi Zui still care about the third elder? Everything could just be pushed to the back. With Chu Yang in front and Yi Zui behind, the two figures flew out of the forest like two shooting stars. Chu Yang had only flown 30 feet when he already felt a chill from the sword aura on his back. Obviously, the other party's speed was very fast. With a thought, a long sword immediately appeared and flashed across the sky. Clang! Clang! Almost at the same time, the two of them released their sword aura. The two swords let out a long cry at the same time. King against king. Sword aura entangled king against king, and victory had to be determined. There couldn't be two suns in the sky and two rulers in a country. And there couldn't be a second king in the sword. This was an amazing feeling. At this moment, Yi Zui's face was full of fanaticism. He shouted, Third Elder, since it's already a king against king, are you still thinking of leaving? Stop in your tracks and fight with me. This sword of Chu Yang's was not a calamity sword. He had always been cautious. When facing a direct descendant of a big clan, unless absolutely necessary, he would not use the calamity sword. Although this sword was not a calamity sword, under Chu Yang's forging, it was much stronger than ordinary so-called divine swords. At this moment, He also felt the sword aura in his heart surging. Hearing this, he actually agreed without hesitation. All right. Such a battle between sword supremacies had only happened a few times in the entire heavens world since ancient times. This was a battle between swordsmen, and only such a battle could truly allow a swordsman to grow sufficiently. Chu Yang couldn't help but think of Jiu Duxing. If Jiu Duxing was here, he would probably fight with him for this battle even if he had to risk his life, right? To Yi Zui, this battle was a dream come true. To Jiu Duxing, he had probably longed for it for a long time as well. But to Chu Yang, it was exactly what he wished for. Chu Yang was also a sword supremacy. Yi Zui wanted to improve himself, but Chu Yang was even more eager to do so than Yi Zui. Chu Yang thought of Jiu Duxing and his Sword of Solitude and Sword of Oblivion. Chu Yang did a somersault in the air. Sword aura shot out from all over his body as he floated down. At the same time as he landed, he lowered his gaze. He lowered his head and lowered his head. He was completely immersed in the world of the sword. It was not a calamity sword, but Chu Yang could clearly feel this sword's joy, anger, sorrow, and joy, as well as the strong desire to fight as if it had met its match. That was the absolute exhilaration of a sudden release of extreme thirst and pain that could not be obtained. At the same time as he landed, opposite him, Yi Zui retreated at the same time, giving him a safe space to land. This was like the tacit understanding between two swords, giving each other ample respect. Yi Zui held the sword in his right hand. Holding it horizontally in front of his chest, he raised his left index finger and gently brushed it across the body of the sword. His movements were gentle and his gaze was passionate and persistent. However, he did not look at his opponent but at the sword in his hand. His gaze actually contained endless love. It was the kind of enchantment that was like caressing the skin of his beloved. He had no feelings for anyone in the world except for the sword. But it was filled with a passion that went deep into his soul. At this moment, Yi Zui acted as if there was no one else around. Chu Yang's heart trembled. There are countless heavenly layer experts, but a battle between sword supremacies is rarely seen since ancient times. Yi Zui's gaze was focused on the sword. You are extraordinary and also a sword supremacy. To be able to have today's battle, it is for both of us. It is a gift from the heavens. Chu Yang smiled strangely. Why are you not calling me third elder anymore? Yi Zui still did not raise his head. He said indifferently, a name is just a title. What I call you will not change the fact of this battle. In that case, I will call you Dogshit Yi. How about that? Chu Yang asked sarcastically. That works too. Yi Zui did not even raise his head. As long as you can fight with me. Chu Yang's heart trembled. This person is crazy. However, he burst into laughter. But you don't think so. If this battle is a battle between martial artists, it can be said that it doesn't matter. But as a battle between swordsmen, don't you think it is unfair? It is indeed unfair. I am 2 grades higher than you. Yi Zui said indifferently, of course I will suppress my strength to the same level as yours. A sword supremacy at the peak of 2nd grade will fight with you. In a battle between swordsmen, the most important thing was to be fair. This was the rule ever since the Tribulation Sword Master took control of the heavens. In a battle between other grades, one could use schemes and tricks, poison. Even if a supreme martial artist fought against a martial king, no one would say anything. Strength was respected. One could use all the sinister methods one could think of. But as long as one was a swordsman, it would be a fair battle. This swordsman started from the sword sovereign. The higher one went, the stricter the hierarchy. A proud swordsman, a proud sword. Yi Zui suppressed his strength to the peak of 2nd grade supreme martial artist, but he was still much higher than the current Chu Yang. But Chu Yang did not say that it was unfair. Because he himself knew that the aura he was releasing now, in Yi Zui's perception, was definitely that of a peak 2nd grade. But in reality, Chu Yang was only a beginner 2nd grade. Regarding this, other than being speechless, Chu Yang was still speechless. This was originally used to show off, but in today's battle between swordsmen, it was a huge disadvantage. Yi Zui lowered his head and said, Let me give you time to prepare. Chu Yang said sternly, raise your head. Yi Zui suddenly raised his head. At the same time, the two of them did the same action. They puffed out their chests, raised their heads, and as though a spring humming sound came from their backs, they suddenly straightened up. If their previous posture was that of a sword in its scabbard, then at this moment, their swords were already out of the scabbard. Yi Zui placed his sword in front of his chest, then spread it out and straightened it, the tip of the sword pointing at Chu Yang's glabella. Chu Yang did the same action. A battle between swordsmen. Chapter 1308. This difference was a fundamental one. One controlled the sword, while the other controlled the sword. It might not be very obvious now, but once their grades were raised to a certain level, this difference could directly determine life and death. Because a person controlling the sword was a god. A sword controlling the person was a demon. A demon's sword. A ray of light flashed. Chu Yang raised his sword and went straight forward. His feet slid forward. His entire person suddenly became lonely and desolate as he slid forward. As if he was the only one left in the world. The sword of solitude. Even if Jiu Duxing was at the side, he would probably also mistakenly think that he had used this move himself. Yi Zui's gaze didn't waver. He shouted, good sword intent. Take my sword of drunken dreams. With a flash of sword light, Yi Zui's black clothes suddenly blurred. A dreamy and somewhat drunken sword intent spread out. The sword intent of solitude was still lonely in drunken dreams. The two swords suddenly each gave off thousands of rays of cold light. At the same time, both of them launched their attacks. It was already early in the morning, but at this moment, sword light scattered and filled the sky above their heads, shining even brighter than the stars in the night sky. Both of them turned into smoke. With just a floating movement in the air, a series of afterimages appeared. However, there were no afterimages of the swords at all. The swords had already turned into sword light and sword aura, surging and rampaging. At this moment, sword aura shot into the sky. Smack. After exchanging several blows, the two swords finally clashed for the first time. With one clash, both of them staggered and retreated backward. The sword aura in the air lost control and exploded with a bang. Like a bomb exploding, it spread out in the dense forest. With a swoosh, all the trees within a radius of several hundred feet were turned into powder under this surging sword aura. Before the sword aura dissipated completely, the two sword lights were already entangled with each other again. The previous attack was only considered a probing attack. But this time, it was a real battle. A ball of sword aura that was like a dream, like mist, like smoke and clouds, spread toward Chu Yang. Chu Yang's sword shook. A wave of lonely sword aura blocked the pass. In an instant, Yi Zui had already circled around him 17 to 18 times. His sword came from every direction, from top to bottom. From the north, south, east, front, back, left, right, top of the head and bottom of the feet, he attacked fiercely. It had turned into a cloud of smoke and was everywhere. Chu Yang's body was as tall and straight as a sword. His sword hand was impenetrable. Different situations call for different measures. They would only defend and never attack. The sound of clanking and clanking rang out. Every time the two swords clashed, there would be balls of sword chi bursting out. In the blink of an eye, the entire forest was riddled with holes. A human figure quietly appeared in the shadows several hundred feet behind them. It seemed to glance in their direction before swiftly leaving in a flash. It was the third elder. Yi Zui had clearly seen it. However, he ignored Chu Yang's warning. Instead, he brandished his sword and attacked Chu Yang. Hey! The person you're chasing has already run away. So what if he ran away? Now, no one is more important than you. It was not easy to have a fair duel between two swordsmen, but he met a lunatic. Chu Yang was very depressed. He braced himself and dealt with it with all his might. It only took an instant for Yi Zui's figure to transform from turning into a cloud of smoke to directly turning into a cloud of smoke. Chu Yang closed his eyes and brandished his sword. He could feel the vibrations of the sword. Every time the sword vibrated, It was when the sword came into contact with the other party's sword. In just a short period of time, Chu Yang had already withstood no less than 3,000 attack. If it were an ordinary swordsman, this frequency would be enough to throw his shoulders and arms away from his body when he swung his sword. However, the frequency of Yi Zui's attacks was still increasing. Chu Yang's situation gradually became unfavorable. Because as the other party's attacks became faster and faster, he realized that he actually could not keep up with the other party's rhythm. Although the other party was fighting with suppressed cultivation, he still had a real foundation. However, he was still a genuine fourth-grade sword supremacy. As long as he could not keep up with the other party's rhythm, then in the blink of an eye, his body would become a beehive. As Chu Yang blocked, his mind was racing. He suddenly thought of a saying, "Iron walls and bronze walls fight until the end." Iron walls and bronze walls. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. He no longer defended passively. He suddenly abandoned Jiyu Duxing's Sword of Solitude and drew out a light screen with a circle of sword light. With a shake of his sword, a galaxy of stars appeared in front of him. Iron walls and bronze walls. Like a whirlwind, Yi Zui circled Chu Yang several hundred times in an instant. His sword light had already connected into one, but not even a corner of the other party's clothes was touched. It was obvious that the other party was already at a complete disadvantage. There was a nagging feeling, just a little more and the other party would be done for. But even after a little more and a little more, the other party was still in a precarious situation but was still holding on bitterly. Yi Zui shouted, "You want to exhaust me? Even though I have suppressed my cultivation, my real cultivation is still there. You won't be able to exhaust me." Chu Yang chuckled. "Just you wait." He was repeatedly executing the first half of the move Iron Walls and Bronze Walls fight until the end. However, his comprehension was getting deeper and deeper. Under the other party's storm-like attacks, Chu Yang could more and more comprehend the wonders of this move. He couldn't help but think of a saying, "Only when an opponent who is stronger than you is attacking you at full force can your potential be squeezed out. Only then can you see your own inadequacies." This saying was applicable to all aspects. A smile appeared on Chu Yang's face. Even though he was retreating step by step, compared to the precarious situation just now, it was already much better. Yi Zui frowned. Suddenly, he let out a long laugh and flew 30 feet away. Chu Yang took 3 steps back and stood up abruptly, panting heavily. It was just a blink of an eye earlier, but Chu Yang could already feel his fatigue. Yi Zui said coldly, "Why didn't you attack? Under my attacks, if you only defend, you will definitely die." Chu Yang said dispassionately, "When it's time to attack, I will naturally attack." A fervent look appeared in Yi Zui's eyes. "I will wait for your attack. Even though this defensive move of yours is amazing, it is not omnipotent. Watch my demon sealing sword." Brandishing his sword, he suddenly leaped into the air and shouted, "The extraterrestrial demon is right in front of you. Ants like you should just wait for death." Chu Yang smiled bitterly in his heart. "Damn it, everyone says that I am an extraterrestrial demon. I think you are much more like one than me." But just as this thought came to his mind, he felt an evil, almost perverted sword wind descending from the sky. It carried a cold aura of slaughtering everything. In an instant, it actually sealed off his front, back, left, and right. At this moment, it was as if he was standing naked all by himself in a world of ice and snow. Chu Yang drew his sword and shouted, "Wind and cloud green sky." He had executed the first half of the gathering of the clouds and clouds. The sword slashed apart that inexplicable seal in front of him and met the other party's sword. In an instant, Yi Zui's figure suddenly disappeared. It had completely disappeared. There was only one sword left in the world. A sword that had already been demonized. It carried with it a boundless devouring aura. It carried with it a boundless evil. Chu Yang brandished his sword wildly. In this moment, under the pressure of life and death, countless sword moves automatically appeared in his mind. Without thinking, all of them surged out from his hand. The various sword techniques in the land of legacy of the first-generation Tribulation Sword Master. Luo Kedi's sword techniques, Jiyu Duxing's sword techniques, Jimo's sword techniques, Ao Xieyun's sword techniques, even Bu Liuqing's sword techniques, they suddenly appeared. But that demonized sword ignored them. It just followed behind Chu Yang like a maggot. As long as Chu Yang showed any weakness, it would be able to capture it immediately and attack. As everyone knew, no matter how intricate a sword move was, it was impossible to not have any weakness at all. But this set of demonic swords of Yi Zui targeted the weaknesses of all sword move. It didn't care what sword technique you used, how intricate or simple it was. It only attacked your weakness. Besides, Chu Yang had a vague feeling that it wasn't Yi Zui who was attacking now. Or rather, Yi Zui had already become one with the sword and was attacking instinctively. And this instinct was an instinct that most people were inclined towards the sword, and not Yi Zui's instinct. Chu Yang finally understood what the sword spirit meant by the demonic sword. The sword itself wasn't a demon, but once a sword cultivator entered the demonic path, he was even more terrifying than a sword demon. In just an instant, bloodstains had already appeared on Chu Yang's body. In the face of such an all-pervasive attack, it was as if mercury was flowing down the ground. Even Chu Yang had a feeling of being overwhelmed. And he definitely couldn't use the complete tribulation sword technique. Chu Yang roared. His sword suddenly slowed down from fast to slow. He drew a circle and the internal energy in his body also followed suit. At this moment, he subconsciously used his soft water sword intent. This was Chu Yang's instinctive move in the face of the other party's stormy attacks. The moment he made the move, he instantly cursed inwardly. The other party's attacks were so dense and fast. If he used this slow soft water sword intent, wouldn't he be sending his life to the other party's hands? But the next moment, Chu Yang was dumbfounded. Under the guidance of the soft water sword intent, the other party's violent attacks actually followed the soft water sword intent and circled around half a circle before returning to the starting point. This demon sealing sword actually couldn't do anything to the soft water sword intent. Chu Yang was shocked. Then, he finally understood. This demon sealing sword was looking for the weakness. Any sword move had a weakness. But only this sword intent formed from the flow of water had no weakness. The flow of water was eternal. As long as the water was still flowing, it was one from top to bottom. No matter how fast or slow it was one. Who had ever seen a flow of water that was cut in half by a sword? Using the sword tip to find the weakness of the flowing water itself. How could he find it? Thinking of this, Chu Yang suddenly felt a burst of joy in his heart. He almost looked up to the sky and laughed. Because, at this moment, he clearly knew that the soft water sword intent that he had created was finally close to the realm of great success today. Next, Chu Yang's sword moved to the east and west. The sword intent was like flowing water, soft and continuous. Before the power of the first sword dissipated, the power of the second sword arrived. It didn't seem hurried at all. There was no killing intent at all. But it protected his body tightly. The other party's demon-like attacks were completely ineffective. Originally, I thought that continuous outbursts were a painful thing. Now, I say, saving chapters is the painful thing. It's too painful. There's no one to comment on it. There's no motivation at all. This is my habit. After I finish writing a chapter, I go everywhere to read the book reviews. Whether it's scolding or praising me, I'll read it once. Then, I'll fly into a rage or be happily narcissistic for a while. So, I'll write a chapter. Chapter 1309. Chu Yang was like a small boat in the middle of raging waves, going up with the wind and waves and then falling down with the wind and waves. But no matter how big the wind and waves were, they couldn't completely drown this small boat. Chu Yang's mind was clear, forgetting everything. He just went along with the other party's sword momentum and used the soft water sword intent. In fact, he didn't even need to use any moves. But it formed a flawless defense. If the other party's sword is raging waves, raging winds, and torrential rain, and I only have a bend of clear water here, Chu Yang thought, but can't I attack with just a bend of clear water? If I'm a river, what will happen when faced with a storm? That's not right. If I'm a river, then the wind and rain should be increasing my strength. Whether it's rain or snow or fog, they should only increase my strength. Realization suddenly rose in Chu Yang's mind. The next moment, his sword technique changed again. It became acceptance. The next moment, puff puff puff, Chu Yang let out a loud cry and rolled 100 feet away. Just this change in technique had added more than 10 wounds all over his body. If he hadn't dodged quickly, his entire left leg would have been cut off. A cruel look appeared in Yi Zui's eyes. The demonic sword pierced straight through the air, stabbing viciously toward Chu Yang's heart. Chu Yang rolled on the ground pathetically and jumped up. The long swords clashed and a strong vibration came. Chu Yang was sent flying 100 feet away again. And the other party's sword was already in front of him. From the beginning to the end. Chu Yang didn't even have time to take the heavy pill. Extremely helpless, Chu Yang could only use the soft water sword intent again to stabilize the situation. But he was puzzled. What I guessed was definitely not wrong. This should be the case, but why did I receive a heavy blow the moment I did this? The clanging sounds of the long swords clashing became more and more frequent. Evidently, the other party's sword momentum was getting faster and faster. Chu Yang let out a muffled snort. He fell back again. However, it was this collision that allowed him to suddenly understand. That's right. So that's how it was. A small stream could withstand a storm. But if the storm was too big, it would destroy the stream. If the soft water of the brook were to lose its dam, it would vanish without a trace. His current position was a small stream. If he didn't move, no matter how the other party attacked, he would still be a small stream. However, if he overestimated himself and opened a source to accept other water sources, it would depend on his own capacity. The current Yi Zui was equivalent to another small stream. Or a small river, or a big river. He only had the capacity of a small stream and could not contain the other party. In that case, it could only be destroyed by the other party. So now, when he used the soft water sword intent, he could only defend, but not attack. At the very least, before it grew into a huge river, it couldn't attack. A big river could already accommodate small streams, but it still couldn't accommodate another big river. If he wanted to use this kind of sword art to attack and injure people, or even people who were higher than him, he would need to use it to attack. Then, at the very least, he wanted to become a boundless ocean. In this way, no matter what, they would be in an invincible position, and they would be able to counterattack at any time. It was the same even if the enemy was stronger than him. The ocean had its own hurricanes and waves. The stronger the other party's attack, the bigger the storm. But this was something that neither a river nor a stream could achieve. At the thought of this, Chu Yang's mind calmed down at once. He believed that he had already found a path to heaven. Right now, walking on this path, he could only protect himself and not be invaded by external forces. This was enough. But when he grew up, he could rely on this ocean to drown any enemy. Sword light flashed everywhere. Yi Zui fought in a carefree manner, but he also felt extremely depressed. In the battle with the Sword Sovereign, that omnipresent sword intent had indeed benefited him a lot. But the most depressing thing was that the other party didn't attack at all. The other party was completely suppressed by him. This made Yi Zui extremely uncomfortable. You don't attack me, you don't attack. Even if I can comprehend something, it's still very limited. But why don't you attack? You clearly have the power to attack. Of course, Yi Zui didn't know that it was his unreasonable and barbaric attack this time that allowed the world to have another set of truly invincible sword. From the start of this battle until now, he hadn't been injured at all and had benefited a lot. The other party seemed to be covered in injuries, but the benefits he had gained were something that he couldn't even dream of. If Yi Zui had obtained a gold ingot, then Chu Yang had obtained a national treasury in this battle. How much gold was there in the national treasury? Let's end this. Yi Zui let out a long howl. Since you refuse to attack, then die. Demonic sword slaughters the heavens. A fierce roar. Monstrous demonic flames suddenly spread out and filled the world. This sword move was completely one with the sword as the lead. A true demonic sword. Chu Yang let out a clear cry and shouted, "The mortal world is the path of heartlessness, slaying all in the world without retracting the blade." All of a sudden, the soft water sword intent was completely retracted. What followed after was a vast and mighty murderous intent. All of Yi Zui's tactics were to deal with his soft water sword intent. Now, he had also found a way to deal with the soft water sword intent, to use the most violent attack to break the other party's defenses. Just like a river suddenly pouring into a river from all directions. It could break through in an instant. His strategy was completely correct. But he didn't expect that the other party would actually give up on that flawless defense at this moment and suddenly turn to attack. All of his strength was focused on one point and pierced toward him. Like a thunderbolt, the sword pierced straight through the sword light of Yi Zui's demonic sword. With just one strike, it pierced Yi Zui's right chest. Heaven and earth suddenly came to a standstill. Blood splattered. Dozens of sword wounds on Chu Yang's body spurted blood at the same time. This was caused by the final attack. The injuries looked horrifying, but they weren't fatal. His sword. It stopped at Yi Zui's chest and pierced 3 inches into his flesh. But it was a fatal move. Chu Yang didn't advance. Instead, he took 2 steps back and pulled out his sword. A look of disbelief appeared in Yi Zui's eyes. As if struck by lightning, his body suddenly froze. A complicated expression appeared on Yi Zui's face. "Why didn't you use force? You could have killed me with one strike. Wouldn't it have been clean?" Chu Yang shook his head and said hoarsely, "Why should I kill you? Besides, I can't kill you either." Yi Zui's eyes revealed the viciousness of a vulture. "Oh." Chu Yang shook his head. "You are a 4th grade peak level expert. If my sword were to go any further, it wouldn't be able to break through your defense. The battle between swordsmen. It ends here for today." Yi Zui pondered for a moment. "If you were to pierce in and I would counterattack and resist with all my might, you would definitely die. But even though I won't die, I will also become a cripple henceforth. All right, you've won this battle. I'm not your match in a battle of the same level." Chu Yang smiled. Straightforward. Although he said it beautifully, the truth was far from it. The reason why he didn't pierce in, it wasn't because he couldn't kill Yi Zui at all. Taking advantage of Yi Zui's underestimation of his opponent, Chu Yang could have used the sword intent silently and killed this dangerous enemy completely, and if he did that, Yi Zui wouldn't have a chance to counterattack at all. The real reason was that Chu Yang this time. He wanted to enter the Yi clan in the first place. A sword maniac like Yi Zui was an excellent springboard. How could Chu Yang let go of such an opportunity? In Chu Yang's opinion, this battle was a bright path to entering the Yi clan, but another reason was that a sword supremacy like Yi Zui, in Chu Yang's opinion, was a whetstone for Jiyu Duxing. If Jiyu Duxing couldn't fight him, he would probably regret it for the rest of his life. "It's too much of a waste for you to die now. If you want to die, please, die under my brother's sword." Yi Zui snorted and said, "I won't accept your kindness either. Even though this sword of yours didn't hurt my internal organs, the crisscrossing sword aura still caused me quite a bit of damage. Your injuries are all superficial, but you bastard's last sword strike actually hurt my muscles and bones." Chu Yang said frankly, "If I don't hurt you, what should I do if you go back on your words after the battle?" Yi Zui burst into laughter. Actually, this was exactly what he had in mind. After this battle, regardless of victory or defeat, he would immediately show his true cultivation and kill this person. What rules of the sword? How could he care so much about that? But it was no longer feasible now. Chu Yang's sword strike had hurt his muscles and nerves. Even if he regained his 4th grade cultivation and forcefully wielded his sword, it would also cause him to not be able to recover for a long time. In serious cases, he might even be handicapped for life. Both of them were exhausted after fighting until now. Chu Yang was truly exhausted. Even though Yi Zui wasn't at this level, his injuries weren't much better either. They sat on the ground and smiled at each other. But both of them knew in their hearts that there was absolutely no appreciation for each other. Yi Zui still wanted to kill Chu Yang, and Chu Yang, also didn't have any good intentions toward Yi Zui. But on the surface, both of them were smiling kindly as if they were afraid that the other party couldn't sense their appreciation for each other. Great. Yi Zui smiled. What's your name? That defensive stance of yours was truly amazing. After a pause, he continued, especially when you suddenly appeared after a full defensive stance and decided the outcome with one strike. That was even more miraculous. I'm impressed. The logic behind this was very simple. Just like table tennis, if one were to blindly slice the ball for the entire game and then suddenly hit the board hard, even the world champion would probably be stunned in an instant. Of course, it was easy to say, but how difficult was it to actually do it? Chu Yang was about to answer when a sneering laugh suddenly rang out. The voice definitely wasn't far away. It was only within a few hundred feet. Both of their countenances changed abruptly. There was absolutely no kindness in this laughter. It was obviously an enemy. Moreover, he should have been prepared since a long time ago and only approached them abruptly after the battle ended. Both of them were engrossed in the battle just now. One was a sword maniac while the other was pressured so much that he didn't have the time to care about anything else. After the battle ended, both of them heaved a sigh of relief. Of course, they weren't very vigilant of their surroundings, but to be able to approach them in such a short period of time wasn't something that an ordinary person could do. From this, it could be seen that the person who came was definitely no ordinary person. Now that both of them were seriously injured, the situation was extremely bad. After midnight, it would be a hand-to-hand battle with double the monthly votes. Are you ready, G? Chapter 13:10. Yi Zui's face became extremely ugly. Obviously, he knew who this person was. Only Chu Yang was more or less confused. This was already the Yi clan's territory. Was there anyone who dared to attack the Grand Duke of the Yi clan here? A voice said, "Nice to meet you, Brother Yi. I didn't expect to see you here again. This person in front of you must be the third elder of the Divine Clan? This is really a pleasant surprise for me." Another voice said, "Yes, I'm also so surprised that my eyeballs almost popped out. Big Brother Yi, what's wrong with you? Why are you sitting on the ground? Can it be that you can't move?" Yi Zui snorted coldly and said sarcastically, "I was wondering who it was. So it's Zhuge Han. Haha, the third elder has stayed in your house for so long. Can't you tell if this is the third elder or not? As for you, Lan Meng, do you think you are qualified to talk to me like this?" Chu Yang was shocked. He immediately knew who had come. It was actually the Grand Duke of the Zhuge clan, Zhuge Han, and the second young master of the Lan clan, Lan Meng. Zhuge Han, the leader of the younger generation of the Zhuge clan, was known as Zhuge Han. It was said that his ability to plan was not inferior to the older generation of the Zhuge clan. It was indeed extraordinary. The name Zhuge Han originally meant a scholar who could see through the mysteries of the heavens. But every time Chu Yang heard this nickname, he felt like having diarrhea. Zhuge Han. As the name suggests, could it be that Mo Tianji secretly came up and gave birth to him after he did that? The previous voice was obviously Zhuge Han. He said calmly, "Brother Yi, you don't have to worry about this. Haha, I can still recognize the third elder. If I say he's the third elder, he's the third elder. If I say he's not, then he's not. Now I say he is." Chu Yang was dumbfounded. He didn't expect to be labeled as the third elder of the Divine Clan just like this. At this moment, the feeling in his heart was incomparably wonderful. The real third elder is probably already hundreds of miles away from this place by now. But this group of people is grabbing me and calling me the third elder. Do I look like someone from the 3 Stars Divine Clan? Damn it, if Tan Tan was here, it would make sense. Chu Yang cursed in his heart. Then, he discovered one thing. The archdukes of these great families all had a common special ability. That was referring to a deer as a horse, lying through his teeth as if it was the truth. His face was not red and his breath was not out of breath. He was elegant and graceful. Including Yi Zui in front of him, Zhuge Han who had just arrived, and Lan Ruo who had been killed by him in the lower 3 heavens. Yi Zui sneered. Zhuge Han. It was just that he was excited by the prospect. It was fine as long as he said it out loud. Your Zhuge family has suffered heavy casualties. You do need to replenish your forces. Zhuge Han smiled calmly. What Brother Yi said makes sense. Not only do we have to replenish the strength of our own family, we need to weaken the power of other clans. Brother Yi, don't you think so? On the side, Lan Meng sneered. Big Brother Yi, how did you manage to survive? This is the territory of your Yi clan. You were actually left alone in your own territory. You were even chased by our two clans. It can be seen that this person has a lifetime of opportunities. Yi Zui said coldly, even your boss, Lan Ruo, wouldn't dare to let out half a fart in front of me. Lan Meng, who do you think you are? Do you believe that I can let you die here if you say another word? The two fourth-grade supreme martial artists beside you won't be able to protect you under my full-force attack. This sentence was full of murderous intent. Lan Meng shrank his neck. His eyes were filled with rage, but he really didn't dare to say another word. He understood that if Yi Zui really wanted to kill him at the risk of perishing together with him, then the two fourth-grade supreme martial artists beside him really wouldn't be able to stop him. Even though Yi Zui was already injured now, they still wouldn't be able to stop him. Zhuge Han stepped forward and said, Brother Yi, we are all good brothers. He could say and do whatever he wanted to do. Don't worry, I just want to invite Brother Yi to visit my house. We can meet each other day and night, talk about martial arts, and enjoy the beautiful scenery of the Four Seasons. As for this third elder, he is a great opportunity for my clan. Brother Yi, please don't blame us. Yi Zui just sneered. Zhuge Han, you actually didn't mention your purpose for strolling around the Yi clan's territory during this period of time. But no one in the Yi clan made things difficult for you, right? Why, seeing that I'm alone and injured today, you want to take advantage of me? Zhuge Han said, Brother Yi, what are you talking about? Although I didn't say my purpose, didn't Brother Yi also guess that I'm here to hunt down the third elder? Otherwise, why would Brother Yi be here today? Yi Zui frowned and said maliciously, I see. You deliberately hid it, but I guessed it. So you want to make use of me to find the third elder for you. Zhuge Han sighed, Brother Yi, you're so smart. You're right. Although our Zhuge family is powerful, and the people we sent out this time are all masters, we're not as powerful as the Yi family at the center of the continent. Besides, our Zhuge clan can only predict the future. In terms of tracking skills, we are far inferior to the Yi clan's Yi Laixiang. Yi Zui suddenly felt as if his chest was blocked. He was so angry that his face turned red. Zhuge Han. You are indeed a descendant of the Zhuge clan. You are indeed sinister to a certain extent. Zhuge Han said apologetically, Brother Yi, it's better to be sinister than to die openly. I'm really sorry. Chu Yang turned his head and saw a group of men in green and a group of men in blue standing not far away. The leader of the men in green was tall and handsome. His face was like jade, and his eyebrows were slanted to his temples. The expression on his face was gentle and elegant, just like a learned and gentle young man. The leader of the men in blue was a young man. He looked about the same age as Lan Changa, and his face was also somewhat similar. There were 7 to 8 people behind each of them. Chu Yang sighed in his heart. I originally wanted to control Yi Zui and sneak into the Yi clan to find the place where the second section of the sword is hidden. I didn't expect that just when I was about to succeed, 2 big clans actually came to make trouble together. Aren't they trying to force me to my death? Looking at these people, the lowest level of cultivation is a first-grade supreme martial artist. And there are 2 fourth-grade supreme martial artists in each of them. What to say? Since the other party was so brazen, they must have people outside. Since they attacked Yi Zui, then they must have absolute confidence. Otherwise, why would they dare to attack the Grand Duke of the Yi clan in the Yi clan's territory? Seeing Chu Yang turn his head, Zhuge Han smiled kindly. Third elder, we haven't seen each other for 3 months. You've actually recovered so well and can even severely injure Brother Yi Zui of the Yi clan. You really surprised me. Chu Yang touched his nose. Extremely speechless. I say. Zhuge Han, look at me, how do I look like the third elder you mentioned? Zhuge Han looked at him seriously. Suddenly, he laughed and said, Third elder, you must be joking with me. Chu Yang sighed and murmured, it's really time for the Zhuge clan to be disbanded. The first successor of the clan is actually seeing things. Yi Zui laughed. Zhuge Han said lightly, it's okay if third elder doesn't admit it, as long as you're back. You've been away for 3 months, everyone in the clan misses you very much. He waved and shouted, take him down. Wait. Yi Zui stood up. Zhuge Han, give me a reason. Zhuge Han was silent for a while and said lightly, Brother Yi, Yi Shifeng is already dead. We don't know what happened to Yi Shiyu now. He's disheartened and unable to recover from the setback. Among the first 3 dukes of the Yi clan, only you are still supporting the overall situation. Yi Zui nodded slowly. So, as long as I'm gone, the Yi clan will have no successor for a very long time. Brother Yi is indeed farsighted. Zhuge Han smiled and said, however, the main reason is not because of this. Yi Zui said, oh? Zhuge Han said lightly, Brother Yi, it's indeed an accident that we didn't expect that third elder could escape. But after he escaped, we intentionally increased the blockade on several other areas, so that he could only escape to this side. And let him meet up with the people who came to pick him up. And I, at the same time, came here. Brother Yi, it's all for you. An accident led to a premeditated plan. Perhaps it's also heaven's will. Zhuge Han smiled gracefully and bowed slightly. Brother Yi, please forgive me. Yi Zui took a deep breath. In other words, your target from the beginning was actually me. Why? Zhuge Han smiled. Not entirely. Third elder is also a very important target. But, according to the guidance of fate, this third elder in front of Brother Yi is more important. And, Brother Yi yourself is no different from these 2 people. As for the reason, when Brother Yi arrives at Zhuge clan's Tianji city, I'll definitely give it all to you. Zhuge Han said elegantly, Brother Yi, there's no need to trouble yourself. You're a sword supremacy. Even with divine medicine, you won't be able to recover in a short time after being injured by the sword energy. Yi Zui's expression changed. Chu Yang asked, I have a question. Why am I more important? Do you know who I am? Zhuge Han stared at him and smiled. My Zhuge clan offered the souls of 3 ancestors to calculate your identity. Although I don't know your origin, you have a great relationship with my Zhuge clan. If you're in the Zhuge clan will be fine. If you're not, the Zhuge clan will be uncertain. He finally stopped thinking that Chu Yang was the third elder, but this sentence also clearly meant that he would not let Chu Yang go no matter what. Don't ask me why. Because fate has given such an instruction. Zhuge Han was very patient and graceful as he explained. Chu Yang said angrily, it's unreasonable. You don't even know who I am or what I look like. How dare you do such an absurd thing? It's totally unreasonable. Zhuge Han said lightly, one night in the sky, the tiger is in the plains and the dragon is in the sky. Drunken dreams are filled with pain. Falling into fate, one will be safe. He smiled lightly and said, this is the leak of heavenly secrets that the 3 ancestors exchanged their lives for back then. Being together with Yi Zui and harming Yi Zui's people is related to the safety of the Heavenly Secrets clan. Sir, do you understand now? It will start to erupt at midnight. Gee, see you at midnight, everyone. Chapter 13:11. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. The Zhuge clan's prediction of heavenly secrets was indeed amazing. At a time when heavenly secrets were blurred and couldn't be seen clearly, they could actually predict such things accurately. In fact, even Zhuge Han didn't dare to confirm the true meaning of these words. He wasn't sure if they were right or not. But Chu Yang knew that they were right. As long as he was caught and brought into the Zhuge clan or assimilated by the Zhuge clan, then the Zhuge clan would be safe. Completely correct. Because he was the Tribulation Sword Master. One night in the sky, the tiger in the plains and the dragon in the sky. These 2 sentences, the first one was about the position and the second one was about Yi Zui and himself. Both of them were tigers in the plains. Or Yi Zui was a tiger in the plains. He was a dragon in the sky. Thinking of this, Chu Yang's face heated up. Drunken dreams were painful. Yi Zui was injured. Falling into heavenly secrets and being safe. This should be the main purpose of Zhuge Hun's visit. But this sentence was also a little vague. Would it be safe if he fell into heavenly secrets, or if he and Yi Zui both fell into heavenly secrets? Chu Yang sighed in his heart. This Zhuge clan was really generous. They were actually willing to use the lives of 3 elders in exchange for a prediction of heavenly secret. But he didn't know that the Zhuge clan was even more helpless. First, there was the medicine banquet which turned the entire clan upside down. Then, there was the slaying of Dao battle which reduced the overall high-end strength of the Zhuge clan by half. And there was also the matter of the Tribulation Sword Master coming up. The Zhuge clan was in a terrible fix and overwhelmed. All the high-level experts went into seclusion, preparing to increase their strength as much as they could before the battle. But at this time, the 3rd elder of the sacred race, who had been on the brink of death, suddenly broke out of the prison, brimming with vitality. This was bad. The high-level experts were all in seclusion and weren't prepared for this at all. They actually let the 3rd elder meet up with the divine clan who had been waiting to receive him and rush out of the Zhuge clan. Then, the Zhuge clan really panicked. Once the 3rd elder returned, the divine clan would take revenge on a large scale. They were preparing for a large-scale chase. Suddenly, they received news. The Li clan was making a large-scale move. It was suspected that the Tribulation Sword Master had appeared. This was truly a case of a leaky roof being hit by continuous rain, a broken boat encountering headwinds. The Zhuge clan was at a loss for a moment. Thus, Zhuge Tsangqiong risked the backlash of the heavenly secrets and made a divination. The divination showed that within 3 years, Zhuge Tsangqiong would die. Thus, the Zhuge family became even more panicked. In order to save the clan, the 3 middle-level supreme ancestors sacrificed their cultivation that transcended the boundary between immortal and mortal, sacrificed their lives, and used their souls and blood as a guide. He broke through the seal of heaven's secret. He wanted to find a way to survive. Yet, they had found such an inexplicable path, and then the 3 ancestors had passed away. The Zhuge clan was also confused. What was going on? How could such an insignificant person decide the life and death of the Zhuge family with just a few inexplicable words? He was still doubtful. It was better to believe it than not to believe it at all. As a result, the Zhuge family made large-scale arrangements and mobilized all forces to prevent the sacred race elder from being caught. Instead, he was used as bait to rush into the Yi clan's territory. At the same time, Zhuge Hun shouldered a heavy responsibility and came to the Yi clan. After spending time with Yi Zui, he pretended to accidentally leak some information. As the Grand Duke of the Yi clan, how intelligent was Yi Zui? With just a little leak, he had deduced the truth of the matter. Then, he rushed ahead of Zhuge Hun to hunt down the 3rd elder of the sacred race. This indicated that all these developments were carried out silently and methodically according to the Zhuge family's strict budget, all the way until now. At this critical juncture, Chu Yang was chased out of the inn by Wu Jueqing and sped all the way. Hurried as a spark, he finally caught up. That prophecy of the Zhuge family and Chu Yang finally succeeded in becoming one of the most important characters. Now that the 3 Cao case were facing each other, everyone was confused. But Yi Zui wanted to escape. Chu Yang wanted to escape, but Zhuge Hun insisted on capturing the 2 of them together. It said that they would be safe once they fell into the heavenly secrets. But it didn't say that it was only this guy in front of him. The safest way was, of course, to capture the 2 of them together. The Yi clan was naturally powerful. The Zhuge family would never dare to provoke them normally. But now, the Zhuge family would be gone in 3 years. Why would they care about the Yi clan? So, what was the big deal about attacking Yi Zui? This was the cause and effect of the matter. With this development, the 3rd elder of the sacred race, who was originally very important, was no longer noticed by anyone at this moment. This world was just so wonderful. As for the Lan clan, it was a solid ally of the Zhuge family now. The Lan clan was gradually declining and lost more experts than any other clan. Left with no choice, they could only fully unite with the Zhuge family first. Zhuge Han looked at Chu Yang with a complicated gaze. Who exactly was this guy? Not only did he look sloppy, but he was also extremely filthy. Especially now, he was barefooted, and his whole body was covered with injuries. He looked like he only had one breath left. Chu Yang's face was covered with grease, and the filth on his body was still on his face. Especially now, he was dripping with blood. Of course, Zhuge Han couldn't recognize that this guy in front of him was Chu Yang, Minister Chu, who had once created chaos in Tianji City. Besides, he didn't have much contact with Chu Yang at that time. "Sir, who are you?" Zhuge Han asked. Chu Yang was silent for a moment but didn't answer him. He only said lightly, "Archduke Zhuge, from what I heard, the 4 lines you said seemed to be something like a poem. The Tianji Gatha seems to be a little incomplete. There should be a few lines that you haven't said, right?" Zhuge Han's expression changed instantly. He grinned. "Whether it's complete or incomplete, you will know everything when you reach Tianji City." Chu Yang pondered for a moment and said sincerely, "Going to the Zhuge family, and there's no danger to my life. Naturally, it's not a difficult thing. But, can you give me some time to consider?" Zhuge Han was a little surprised but still pretended to be generous. "Of course." Chu Yang lowered his head. Because just now, he heard a voice as soft as a mosquito. "Let's rush out together." It was Yi Zui's voice. When Chu Yang looked, he saw that Yi Zui's lips were tightly shut and he didn't move at all. He really didn't know how he could make a sound and even condense it into a line to transmit his voice. But Chu Yang didn't have such ability. He could only lower his head, seeming to be deep in thought. But he asked subtly, "Rush out which way? How? Which side has a more complicated terrain?" Yi Zui's voice continued. "They still have a few 5th-grade supreme martial artists, but they didn't notice them at the side. They must be waiting outside. We can only bet on our luck." Chu Yang said, "We can't go in the direction of the Yi clan." Yi Zui said, "From here to the northeast, it's the continent's #1 divine mountain, Pagoda Mountain. The terrain here is the most complicated. Once we enter the mountain, we will have to take many turns. Even those who are familiar with the terrain may not be able to make it out. But for us now, only this place is safer. As for whether we can make it out in the future, we'll talk about it later." Chu Yang agreed. "Yes. Stay alive first. How's your injury?" Yi Zui asked. "I'm worried about your injury." Chu Yang's voice had a hint of laughter. Yi Zui also smiled. "If that's the case, follow my gesture and we'll attack together. Don't seek to kill the enemy, just rush out first. Since the terrain over there is complicated, there must be experts lying in ambush," Chu Yang said. Yi Zui said, "If there is, we can only try our best. I can only fight with all my might. If I can make it, I'll be lucky. If I can't, I'll be doomed." Admiration welled up in Chu Yang's heart. As the Grand Duke of the Yi clan, although Yi Zui wasn't a good person, his open-mindedness and willingness to let go were indeed top-notch. But Chu Yang knew that they probably couldn't rush over there. With Zhuge Han's means, since he appeared like this, he definitely had 100% confidence. Chu Yang even had Zhuge Han on him. He discovered the characteristics of Diwu Qingru and Mo Tianji. Of course, compared to these two, Zhuge Han's obvious weakness was that he talked too much. Since that was the case, then when he reached the mountain, he'd find another opportunity. At least after breaking out of this siege, he'd have a wide world to explore. It might be easy for them to catch Yi Zui. But to catch him, it really wasn't that easy. "I've thought about it." Chu Yang looked up. Zhuge Han smiled lightly. "Oh, I can agree to go to the Zhuge clan, but I have a condition," Chu Yang said seriously. "What condition?" Although Zhuge Han was shrewd, he couldn't help but feel happy. "I don't agree," Yi Zui shouted. "If you want to go to the Zhuge clan, I'll kill you first. The Zhuge clan wants to deal with me, how can I allow you to help them? If you must die, let's all die together." Zhuge Han was slightly angry. He shouted, Take Yi Zui down first. The order was given. 7 to 8 figures flew up at the same time. Yi Zui let out a shrill cry. Sword light flashed. Without dodging or avoiding, it actually pierced toward Chu Yang's back. Chu Yang was shocked and furious. He dodged and shouted, "Are you crazy?" Yi Zui snorted and shouted violently, "Let's all die together." He charged again. With a spin and a somersault, he had already condensed into a round sword light in midair. Like a long rainbow, it flew toward Chu Yang fiercely. Chu Yang's forehead was sweating. His leg that was seriously injured earlier didn't seem to be very agile. He was in an extremely sorry state. He shouted, You're crazy. What are you waiting for?" Before his voice died away, Yi Zui's sword light had already shot toward him. Chu Yang blocked with his sword but didn't manage to. His chest and lower abdomen were immediately covered in blood. Under the intense pain, he let out a muffled groan and fell backward. Yi Zui roared like thunder and continued to attack, as if he wouldn't stop until he chopped this guy into minced meat. "Stop him." Zhuge Han was slightly puzzled. He added, "Be careful." However, although Zhuge Han thought that the other party might be trying to trick him, the few supreme martial artists who attacked didn't have the same brain as Zhuge Han. They only knew that this person in front of them was very important. Yi Zui wanted to kill him, so they had to protect him. They straightened their bodies and stood in front of Yi Zui. At this moment, sword energy rushed to the sky in front and behind them. The two sword supremes attacked at the same time. Chapter 13:12. This was really beyond everyone's expectations. Everyone had seen Yi Zui's combat power clearly. Of course, they knew that Yi Zui was not easy to deal with. But the wound on Yi Zui's chest was obviously caused by the sword aura, and it had injured his tendons. Under such circumstances, it was certain that Yi Zui would not be able to unleash his highest combat power. Yi Zui's current sword aura had confirmed everyone's guess. But what was really unexpected was definitely not Yi Zui, but Chu Yang. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that there were definitely no less than 50 wounds on this guy's body. Although they were all superficial wounds, for a sword supremacy like Yi Zui to be injured to this extent, he was probably on the verge of death. Moreover, the wound on his leg that had almost severed his leg was something that everyone could see. Even the few fourth-grade supreme martial artists unanimously agreed that if he were to fight forcefully, this person would definitely not be able to unleash even 20% of his usual combat power. Who would have thought that the moment he attacked, he would actually unleash more than 120% of his combat power? Even if he was not injured at all, it would be very difficult for him to do so. And not only that, this guy originally seemed to have wavered due to his heavy injuries. But in the blink of an eye, he had turned against them. In the blink of an eye, Yi Zui was in front of them, and Chu Yang was behind them. The two sword supremacies attacked with all their might at the same time, surrounding these few supreme martial artists in the blink of an eye. Sword aura rampaged, and before the 3 first-grade supreme martial artists could even let out a scream, they turned into flesh and blood. The 2 third-grade supreme martial artists spun and fell out, their bodies full of sword wounds. The 2 fourth-grade supreme martial artists finally stabilized their footing. They roared furiously and counterattacked with all their might. Bam bam! Chu Yang and Yi Zui struck with their palms at the same time. At the same time, they let out a muffled groan. There was a crack in Chu Yang's body, and some bones were broken. But the two of them finally joined together. In an instant, the sword aura surged. 2 great rivers converged into a torrent. It charged toward Zhuge Han and Lan Meng mightily. Zhuge Han let out a roar and attacked with all his might together with the other 2 beside him. This gentle-looking Zhuge clan Grand Duke was actually a first-grade supreme martial artist as well. All the experts from all directions pounced toward them at the same time. Chu Yang and Yi Zui shouted at the same time. Suddenly, the sword light changed direction abruptly. It endured the attacks of several masters with its body. At the same time, blood spurted out from its mouth. Finally, it changed direction. It brushed past Zhuge Han's body and shot to one side. On the other side, Lan Meng wanted to watch the show. In the blink of an eye, the two sword lights merged into one and rushed towards him like a bolt of lightning. For a moment, he couldn't help but feel as if his soul had left his body. His entire body was ice cold, and he almost cried out, "Quickly save!" However, the guards beside him had just moved and rushed over to stop him. It was too late to come back now. The next moment, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the second Duke of the Lan clan let out a blood-curdling scream and his entire body suddenly shattered into pieces. The two Dukes of the Lan clan were rather pitiful. Normally, they were always suppressed by Lan Ruo. Now that Lan Ruo was not around, they could finally come out for a spin. Just like that, he lost his life. The other clans were fine, but the Lan clan's first Duke Lan Ruo and second Duke Lan Meng were the only ones affected. The three men, Lan Changa, were all dead. Just like what Yi Zui had said earlier, there was no one left to carry on his legacy. Chu Yang was also rather black-hearted. Until today, the Lan clan, which was one of the major clans, had already lost 4 dukes to him alone, and they were all ranked at the top. Once Lan Meng died, there was an opening. Chu Yang and Yi Zui turned into a bolt of lightning and flew out, darting in a straight line on the grass. "Chase!" Zhuge Han shouted coldly, "Northeast direction? Don't tell me that I don't know, that it's a complicated place. 4 5th-grade supreme martial artists are waiting for the two of you. Let's see where you can escape to." Everyone let out a howl. They chased after the two of them. Only the few supreme martial artists of the Lan clan stopped and looked at the bodies of the two dukes that had already turned into thousands of pieces. They wanted to cry but had no tears. Thud. Only then did Lan Meng's head fall from the sky. There were hundreds of sword marks on it. Chu Yang and Yi Zui ran all the way. At this moment, both of them were seriously injured. Before Chu Yang made his move, he already had 2 incomplete versions of heavy pills in his mouth. After he made his move, in less than a breath's time, the 2 heavy pills had already been used up. 2 heavy pills meant that he had blocked 2 fatal injuries and recovered 2 times. Including the first time, it meant that he had used up 3 incomplete versions of heavy pills in the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, going back and forth at the gates of hell 3 times. Such a frequency simply made Chu Yang himself break out in cold sweat and feel like his soul was about to leave his body. As they ran all the way, Chu Yang suddenly realized that Yi Zui's aura was slowly changing. He had been injured repeatedly and was even hit twice by a 4th-grade supreme martial artist. 3 of his ribs were broken. It should have been a normal reaction for him to get weaker and weaker. But now, he was not getting weaker and weaker. Instead, he was getting crazier and crazier. It was as if these repeated injuries were instead triggered by some violent reason. The destructive, violent, and brutal aura on him was getting heavier and heavier. Every time this aura got heavier, his speed would become a little faster and his aura would also become a little more majestic. Moreover, even in such a frenzied state, there were actually faint traces of black aura slowly emerging from Yi Zui's body and sword. As more and more black aura emerged, Chu Yang discovered to his surprise that the wound on Yi Zui's chest was also slowly healing. The bones in his body were also making subtle cracking sounds as they gradually returned to their original positions and then recovered. What's going on? Even though the two of them were working together, Chu Yang couldn't help but be shocked. "This is demonic aura," the sword spirit said slowly in the consciousness space. "No wonder Yi Zui's cultivation is so fast and his body can produce demonic aura. But he's just an ordinary person, how can he produce such demonic aura?" Demonic aura? The aura of an extraterrestrial demon? Chu Yang's heart shook as he asked. This shock was no small matter. He almost stopped in his tracks. "I've never seen an extraterrestrial demon before either." The sword spirit was a little embarrassed. But according to the legends, this demonic aura is very similar to that of an extraterrestrial demon. This aura is very similar to... Chu Yang was puzzled at once. Why would there be an extraterrestrial demon aura on Yi Zui? Could it be that one could come into contact with extraterrestrial demons in this heavenly continent? If that was the case, this continent would have been extinct a long time ago. Could it still exist until now? The sword spirit pondered. He said, "Not necessarily. There are a few possibilities for this aura. The first possibility is that after a powerful extraterrestrial demon exploded, its legacy traveled through space and came to the heavenly continent. But it was obtained by Yi Zui. But if that's the case, Yi Zui shouldn't be as weak as he is now. Chu Yang asked, "What's the second possibility?" The second possibility is that something worn by an extraterrestrial demon, such as a jade pendant, a sword, and so on, was obtained by Yi Zui. But Yi Zui hasn't really unlocked its secret yet. But is already on the verge of unlocking it now. The third possibility is that he was possessed by the soul of an extraterrestrial demon. However, if he was possessed, the heavenly continent would already be gone by now. So the third possibility is also impossible. The sword spirit said in one breath. Chu Yang seemed to have understood something. Then there's only the second possibility. The sword spirit nodded heavily. Yi Zui must have had a fortuitous encounter. And it must be related to the extraterrestrial demon. A sword light flashed across the grassland. Speed. It wasn't like a streak of light, but a streak of light. Behind him, several figures chased after him relentlessly like maggots on his bones. Dozens of miles passed in the blink of an eye. Yi Zui was also rather perplexed by Chu Yang beside him. This fellow. Wasn't he on the verge of death? How did he suddenly become so lively? Could it be that he had been conserving his strength during the battle with me earlier? In that case, I can't be in a hurry to kill this person after this. It's best to have another battle. The sword light cut through a dense forest. With a thud, it plowed out a straight and smooth path. A tall mountain appeared in front of him. There was indeed something strange about this mountain. The entire mountain was like a pagoda. From the bottom to the top, one went up layer by layer. From the second layer onward, it was hidden in the clouds, barely visible. From the fourth layer onward, nothing could be seen at all. And this was when the sky was clear and there were no clouds for thousands of miles. If it rained on a cloudy day, nothing could be seen from the foot of the mountain. The characteristics of the pagoda mountain were similar to the Zhuge clan's Mount Xingyun. In fact, it was even more solid than Mount Xingyun. Every corner of the continent had one or more such strange places. It seemed to be a coincidence, but it also seemed to be deliberately arranged. But in terms of the degree of mystery, the pagoda mountain was the most. There was a local folk song that talked about the pagoda mountain. Pagoda mountain, the top of the pagoda is sharp, the top of the pagoda is a god, 1 foot on the ground and one hand holding up the sky. The sky is this heaven. In front of the pagoda mountain. There were only 4 paths to enter the pagoda mountain from this direction. Now, these 4 paths were occupied by 4 people. Looking at the blazing sword light that was rushing toward them at high speed from afar, the 4 of them adjusted themselves automatically, giving up on the 2 paths at the side and guarding the 2 paths in the middle. As expected, Grand Duke, they have indeed rushed out. And they are really coming in this direction. A smile appeared on one of them. Perhaps Yi Zui doesn't know that if he really escapes in the direction of the Yi clan, there really won't be anyone stopping him there. Another person smiled and said, Grand Duke's great foresight has really reached a certain level. The third person said solemnly, they are getting closer and closer. We must take them down in one fell swoop. The other 3 laughed softly at the same time. We have long been prepared. Even if these 2 people are both Tribulation swordmasters, they won't be able to escape from the palms of the 4 of us today. They weren't boasting at all. 4 5th-grade supreme martial artists against a 4th-grade sword supremacy who was already seriously injured and a 2nd-grade sword supremacy who was on the verge of death. It was absolutely a piece of cake for them. Chapter 13:13. Looking at the 2 rays of sword light that were getting closer and closer, the 4 supreme martial artists revealed a look of delight like a cat toying with a mouse. You guys were running for your lives, but you probably didn't expect that the escape route that you thought had the greatest chance of survival would be your doomsday, right? The sword light was getting closer and closer. The 4 supreme martial artists were ready to strike. Once they struck, it would be a thunderous strike. Chu Yang and Yi Zui had even discovered each other's aura. But at this moment, The two of them were helpless. As long as they entered the mountain, Yi Zui was confident that he could shake off the pursuers based on his familiarity with the pagoda mountain. But the other party was waiting at the mountain pass. He couldn't enter at all. Yi Zui himself wasn't sure what the pagoda mountain was. He only knew that this mountain contained countless big secrets and that his elder master often came to the pagoda mountain to cultivate in seclusion. Although he was at home after coming out of seclusion, he often ordered people to pay attention to the activities here. But he never said what was here. Yi Zui had come to the pagoda mountain before, and one of his most important things was obtained from the 4th level of the pagoda mountain. Above the 3rd level, there were thousands of mazes. Above the 4th level, there was no clue at all. That time, Yi Zui had almost died inside as well. But Yi Zui felt that even if he died that time, it was worth it. Because he repeatedly came to the pagoda mountain more than 10 times after that, but he never found that wonderful place again. This matter was buried in the bottom of Yi Zui's heart and became his greatest regret as well as his greatest wish. When Chu Yang first saw the pagoda mountain, his expression was very strange. He dared to bet. He bet with all his assets and even the tribulation sword when he came from the north. He definitely didn't discover this mountain. He came from the north. But this mountain. It was in the northeast, less than 100 miles away. He actually didn't discover such a mysterious mountain range that was filled with fog and towered into the clouds. Even on the mountain where Wei Wuyan fought. He should have seen it clearly. That was what he should do. It was totally possible to see it from the northwest from afar. But he didn't discover it. Chu Yang remembered it very clearly. When he rushed over from the northwest, he even specially looked in the northeast direction. What he saw was a plain. But now, they were heading north from south. What they saw was actually the world-famous pagoda mountain. What was going on? There was an enemy blocking his path. Chu Yang and Yi Zui had no choice but to meet force with force. Breaking through the seal was the only way to survive. If he couldn't break through, he would have to do what Zhuge Han said, go to the Zhuge family as a guest. A few hundred meters behind him, Zhuge Han smiled proudly. Yi Chen often went into seclusion at the pagoda mountain. However, during this period of time, Yi Chen was not around. Everyone thought that it was impossible for them to set up an ambush here, but I set up an ambush here. Yi Zui, on the other hand, had finally lived up to his expectations and had chosen this path. Let's see where you can run to. At this moment, there was naturally no Yi Chen on the pagoda mountain. Furthermore, even if Yi Chen were to enter the pagoda mountain right now, he would also clearly say that there was not a single person on the pagoda mountain right now. Absolutely. Not a single person existed. However, in reality, at this moment, on the 1st level of the pagoda mountain, there was a grey-robed man standing in the wind in the dense clouds. This grey-robed man's entire body seemed to have melted into the clouds, blowing with the breeze. As the clouds scattered and gathered again, it was as if he was the wind. He was the clouds. At this moment, this man was frowning as he looked at the sword light that was rushing toward him from the foot of the mountain. His gaze seemed to have transcended the distance and captured the two people who were running away in his eyes. He saw them clearly. Even the wounds on their bodies were clearly seen by him, not a single one of them was missed. Tilting his head, the grey-robed man murmured somewhat doubtfully, "Why does this fellow look so much like Chu Yang?" Then, he narrowed his eyes and focused on Chu Yang's body. Then, he smiled and said, "It's really this little bastard." He clearly saw that under the cover of the bloody wounds all over Chu Yang's body, his muscles and bones were safe and sound. Furthermore, they were slowly but surely recovering on their own. This little rascal only knows how to pretend to be weak. Other than this move, he really doesn't know anything else. The grey-robed man seemed to be greatly dissatisfied with Chu Yang and had a lot of opinions. At this moment, looking at this little rascal in such a sorry state, the grey-robed man actually felt relaxed and happy. He couldn't help but open his mouth and laugh silently. "Little rascal, this is what you get for being naughty. You got your retribution, you deserve it. Ha ha." But the next moment, he frowned. "From the looks of it, if I don't do anything, I'm afraid this rascal really won't be able to escape this time. This matter, if this little rascal dies, it won't be right. His grey-white eyebrows trembled slightly as he finally made up his mind. Forget it, forget it. Take it that I owe you. The grey-robed man sighed softly. Otherwise, if this little rascal knows that I watched this rascal fall into danger without doing anything, I reckon this old man will really be fired. Sighing, he stretched out 2 hands from his sleeves and pressed down from afar. His face was full of reluctance. Actually, I'm hoping that this rascal will be captured and sent to do manual labor every day. Sigh, although he said this, for abundant and irresistible forces silently seeped out from his hands and pressed down with lightning-like speed. At this moment, the 4 supreme martial artists below were all smiling as they slowly raised their hands and placed them on the hilts of their swords and sabers. This action was completely natural for each of them. When the 4 of them moved together, it gave off an even more abundant and irresistible feeling. At this moment, the aura of the 4 of them suddenly rose to the peak. A pressure as heavy as a mountain surged out, surging toward Chu Yang and Yi Zui, who were coming straight at them like raging waves and stormy seas. Chu Yang only felt suffocated. For a moment, both of them were greatly shocked. Yi Zui cursed. Bastards, they kept showing the aura of a 5th-grade supreme martial artist, but it turns out that each of these bastards is actually a 5th-grade supreme martial artist. Chu Yang's heart also sank fiercely. The reason why he agreed to follow Yi Zui here was because of Yi Zui's confidence. Yi Zui himself was a 4th-grade sword supremacy. If the other party was only a 5th-grade supreme martial artist, Yi Zui might have a chance of escaping into the mountains if he fought with his life on the line. Moreover, Chu Yang was assisting him from the side. But now, the other party was a 5th-grade supreme martial artist. The difference between a 4th-grade supreme martial artist and a 5th-grade supreme martial artist was almost equivalent to the difference between a 4th-grade supreme martial artist and a 5th-grade supreme martial artist. How was he going to fight this battle? Chu Yang cursed in his heart. This bastard Yi Zui, you could have been muddle-headed at another time, but why did you have to be muddle-headed at such a critical moment and misjudge the other party? Now look at you. I've really been screwed over by you. And it even flew toward the other party's hand on its own accord. Is there anything more tragic than this? And now that the other party had locked onto him while he was running at full speed, it was already too late for him to change direction. A thought popped up in Chu Yang's heart and he couldn't help but agree. As expected. Don't be afraid of godlike enemies, but be afraid of pig-like teammates. This time, I've indeed been implicated by this pig. In front, the 4 people's hands pressed on the hilts of their swords and sabers at the same time. A heavy aura, together with a murderous aura, erupted with a loud bang. The person in the middle, his clothes fluttering, said with a smile, "Duki, sorry for the offense." Yi Zui's eyes were already filled with irritation. He sped up and scolded, "Offend your mother. A good dog doesn't block the way. Get out of my way." The 4 supreme martial artists revealed a mocking smile at the same time. "Is great young Master Yi instructing us? I'm sorry, do you think that you still have the right to give us orders now?" Yi Zui let out a long howl and shouted, "Gather at one place and break through." Although Chu Yang despised him, was furious with him, and almost wanted to strangle him to death personally, he had to admit that this was the only best plan at the moment. Although it was also a sure-death plan. It was still a little stronger than the other plans. The tips of the 2 people's swords vibrated at the same time. The next moment, the aura of the sword supremacy erupted abruptly, exploding. 2 beams of sword light merged into one and actually emitted a blazing white airflow similar to sword intent. Then, the 2 of them flew up, one on the left and one on the right. With their swords in front and their bodies behind, they charged toward the gap between the 4 people. The 4 supreme martial artists opposite them laughed heartily at the same time. They drew their swords out of their scabbards, ready to fight. Right at this moment, the smiles on the 4 people's faces suddenly froze. Their swords and sabers were only pulled out halfway from their scabbards before they couldn't be pulled out anymore. At this moment, the 4 of them all felt a huge force suddenly descending from the sky, as if a piece of the blue sky had collapsed at this moment and just happened to smash onto their shoulders. Then, this force condensed on their shoulders. Then, they couldn't control their own bodies at all. They were completely stiff. Not only could they not draw their swords, they couldn't move, and they couldn't even change the smile on their faces. Just like that, they maintained an aggressive aura and maintained a calm and graceful combat posture of experts, but they were all stiff right here, with a spirit of desperation and an unparalleled aura of if they succeed or die trying. Chu Yang and Yi Zui suddenly burst forth and charged over. Both of them were paying close attention to the enemy's movements. Yi Zui was thinking, the moment they make a move, I'll immediately pull this fellow beside me and let him fall forward. Then, I'll immediately turn around and leave. I'll save myself first before anything else. Chapter 13-14. Both of them were calculating in their hearts. Naturally, they also reserved some strength in their hands to prepare for any changes. The other party drew his sword abruptly, making both of their hearts skip a beat. Then, both of them rushed into that gap with sword light. But both of their muscles were tensed up, ready for the fatal blow that the enemy was bound to deliver. Both of them knew that this attack was bound to happen. It was absolutely necessary. As long as they could block this blow, they would be able to rush in. If they couldn't, they could only become captives. Luckily, I've prepared a scapegoat. Just that I don't know if I can succeed. Both of them thought this, secretly delighted and nervous. But the next moment, both of them felt a pleasant surprise that their hearts couldn't take. The other party actually maintained that majestic and murderous posture and didn't move at all. They simply let the two of them pass through the four of them. They didn't even block them. In fact, after the two of them rushed in, those four people were still posing and acting cool. They didn't even turn back to chase after them. Even though they shouldn't turn back in a high-speed escape at a critical moment, the two Sword Supremes still couldn't help but turn back to look. It was really too strange. Why was this so? The moment they turned back, they only saw the backs of four people. These four people were still standing majestically, looking straight ahead. It's really strange. Yi Zui muttered. Are these four people just here to pose and scare us? Hurry up and go. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Chu Yang lectured him exasperatedly. Pulling Yi Zui along, it was only now that the two of them were truly in the same boat through thick and thin, working together as one. With a swoosh, they entered the pagoda mountain. In an instant, they disappeared without a trace in the clouds. Both of them understood that although they had their own ideas, if nothing happened to the other party, the possibility of escaping was infinitely close to zero. Luckily, something happened to the other party. It was all thanks to this accident. Not only were Chu Yang and Yi Zui stunned, even Zhuge Han, who was chasing after them, didn't know what to feel. He had been chasing after them for so long. Using tricks, empty fort strategy, psychological warfare, and strong oppression, he finally drove these two people to the mouth of the cloth bag that he had set up. Just one cloth bag. These two people were the result of being captured without putting up a fight. There was absolutely no other possibility. Why was it that at such a time, the four fifth-grade supreme martial artists had all turned into statues? Zhuge Han originally had a confident smile on his face as he chased after Li Mu unhurriedly. His movements were natural and unrestrained. Looking from afar, he saw that the four experts of the clan had already begun to move in a posture that would frighten people to death. He almost laughed out loud. However, in the next moment, the four experts actually remained motionless, allowing the enemy to rush past them. He didn't even try to stop him. Seeing this, Zhuge Han couldn't catch his breath and fell to the ground with a thud. He rolled 7 or 8 times on the grass like an ingot before he stood up. He rubbed his eyes and looked over. That's right. The two of them had already disappeared behind the 4 fifth-grade supreme martial artists. Not even their shadows could be seen. And the 4 fifth-grade supreme martial artists were still smiling complacently, as if they had a card up their sleeves. They had a look of satisfaction on their faces as if they had succeeded in their mission. He stood there in a pose. Zhuge Han only felt a buzzing sound in his head. He was dizzy and wanted to cry but had no tears. He roared, "What are you doing?" He let out a violent roar that shook the entire area. The echoes shook. In the clouds of the pagoda mountain, a series of echoes suddenly came. "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What is it? Is it?" It was really a thunderbolt in spring. However, the four supreme martial artists were still smiling happily, as if they were cats playing with a mouse. They stood majestically, with their hands on the sword hilt. Their swords were half a foot out of the sheath, cold light flashing and murderous. But they didn't move at all. 8 eyes looked at Zhuge Han mockingly. Even their eyebrows didn't move. At this moment, Zhuge Han's heart was cold. Damn it. What the hell is this? Didn't they get tricked? Am I the one who got tricked instead? Are these four fellows the spies of the Yi clan? Cough, that's impossible. One of them is my great-grandfather. How could it be? Zhuge Han led his men. He walked in front of the four supreme martial artists like lightning and shouted anxiously, "What the hell is going on? Why didn't you stop them?" His voice was full of questioning. The four supreme martial artists were still smiling mockingly, standing tall. Then, the four of them suddenly fell to the ground with a pu sound. One by one, they fell on their backs, looking extremely pathetic. Then they got up, as if waking up from a dream. What's going on? What happened just now? Zhuge Han's lungs were about to explode. He roared, "What's going on? I'm the one asking you. What happened just now? Why didn't you stop them?" The four supreme martial artists looked at each other and clearly remembered what happened just now. They just couldn't move, but it didn't mean they couldn't see or hear. He had seen and heard everything that had happened earlier. But they were puzzled. Why? Why couldn't they move all of a sudden? Facing Zhuge Han's furious face, the four supreme martial artists were a little ashamed and a little frightened. Wasn't it too easy to kill them with that kind of power just now? Just now. I don't know what happened just now. The four of us were just about to attack, and suddenly, we couldn't move. Then, you came, and we could move again suddenly. One of the 5th grade supreme martial artists stammered. Even though he had said those words, he didn't believe them himself. So this explanation was really not backed up at all. You couldn't move all of a sudden just now? So they went over. But when I came, you could move again. So you moved. Zhuge Han was so angry that he almost fainted. His nose was crooked, and he roared, "What nonsense is this? Do you believe it yourselves?" The four supreme martial artists looked ashamed. Yes, they didn't believe it themselves. What should they say? But, what happened just now was really like that. What can they say? You're angry, we understand. But we're also wronged. Zhuge Han's handsome face was red. Do you know what you've done just now? Huh? Do you know how much disaster Yi Zui's escape will bring to our Zhuge clan? Do you know that you've let that person go just now? How big of a loss it is to our clan? That's the guidance of the heavenly secret that our 3 ancestors exchanged with their lives. Zhuge Han roared, almost disregarding his image, stomping his feet and scolding. The 4 supreme martial artists hung their heads, looking depressed. Until now, their minds were still a mess. What exactly happened? Could it be that they saw a ghost? But what kind of ghost dared to bewitch the minds of 4 5th grade supreme martial artists? Otherwise, how could they explain it? After a long time, everyone calmed down, and the 4 supreme martial artists had a chance to explain. It's really like this. I just felt my shoulders sink, and then I couldn't move. The 5th grade supreme martial artist looked anxious. I'm not lying, I won't tell such a ridiculous lie. It's true, ask them if you don't believe me. It's really true. It's really like this. The other 3 supreme martial artists nodded vigorously. It's absolutely true, I'm definitely not lying. Zhuge Han fainted. We're all of the pure blood of the Zhuge clan. How can we betray our own clan? This sentence was very powerful. Zhuge Han had to believe it. Besides, these 4 people were really not people he could punish. Could such a thing really happen? Zhuge Han had to calm down and think about this problem. What kind of power is that? Zhuge Han asked. What kind of expert? How can he have such power? A peak-grade supreme martial artist? The 4 5th-grade supreme martial artists showed uncertain fear at the same time. I don't know, but what's certain is that Elder Master can't have such power. So on and so forth, even a peak-grade supreme martial artist may not be able to. The people of the Zhuge clan discussed. Regarding this miraculous incident, everyone was talking about it. Zhuge Han looked up at the sky and sighed. Yi Zui and that person had already entered the pagoda mountain, and there was no hope of catching them. Retreat immediately. Retreat to the clan. Zhuge Han made a prompt decision. If they didn't leave now, they wouldn't be able to catch them, and they wouldn't be able to go back either. Yi Zui would definitely not let this go. The people of the Zhuge clan retreated like a tide, until they disappeared into the horizon. Zhuge Han was still looking back frequently. They had failed this time. When would they have another chance? Was the Zhuge clan going to lose 3 ancestors again to predict the future again? Or they were so sure this time, but they still failed so bizarrely. Then, next time, were they confident? Was the Zhuge clan really coming to an end? The people of the Zhuge clan left with a heavy heart. The people of the Lan clan, they left with an even heavier heart. The second duke was dead. He died in front of them, tragic beyond words. They followed Zhuge Han to the territory of the Yi clan and didn't get anything. The only gain was that they left 3 lives, including the second duke of the clan. Grand Duke Lan Ruo was isolated in the lower 3 heavens and couldn't come up. Third Duke Lan Changa, second Grandmaster Lan Mushue, and 70 to 80 supreme martial artists died in Tianji City. More than 20 supreme martial artists of the Lan clan died in a snowy wilderness in pursuit of the Moonbreeze couple. Second Duke Lan Meng died in the territory of the Yi clan. The talents of the Lan clan had really withered to the point where people would cry at the thought of it. Everyone's footsteps felt as if they were dragging 1,000 pounds. One could imagine what they would encounter when they returned this time. Every step they took was really filled with tears. Chu Yang and Yi Zui rushed into the pagoda mountain at lightning speed. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.